Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the philosophy of every character, I'd love to know where in the world you are watching from tonight, and what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. In the gentle quiet of the Candy Kingdom, where twilight settles softly over roofs made of frosting and chimneys puff warm sugar clouds into the evening air, there lives a ruler whose mind never truly sleeps. Princess Bubblegum, with her steady eyes and the calm determination that seems woven into her very being, watches over her people like someone guarding a fragile flame from the cold night. Her world is bright and sweet and full of life, yet her thoughts often drift into the deeper shadows beneath all that color. There she carries an understanding that order must be tended to the way one tends to a garden, patiently and carefully, lest nature reclaim everything with wild, unpredictable growth. From the outside, her world might seem simple. Candy citizens laugh and dance in little parades, and the kingdom glows softly, like a lantern in the dark. But PB's philosophy is shaped not by the sweetness she rules over, but by the scars she carries from the world that existed long before. A world undone by disaster, a world where she had to build herself from the remnants of chaos. In many ways, she is a being born not of magic, but of necessity. She learned early that structure can protect a heart that has seen too much breaking. Princess Bubblegum's worldview is rooted in the idea that care and control can be the same thing. To her, logic is not the cold opposite of love. Instead, it is the form love takes when it needs to survive. In her mind, to be responsible for others is to think clearly, act decisively, and anticipate every danger the way one might anticipate a storm rolling across the horizon. She loves her people deeply, but it is a love expressed through planning, through vigilance, through the quiet burden of always being the one who must stay awake when others sleep peacefully under the shelter she provides. When PB walks through her lab late at night, surrounded by humming machines and softly glowing screens, she often stands alone in the blue-tinted stillness, contemplating the many paths that stretch before her kingdom. She knows how fragile life can be. She knows that missteps ripple outward. Every decision touches someone. Every calculation means safety or loss or something in between. Her logic is not distant. It is intimate. It is her way of holding the world steady so that no one else has to hold it quite as tightly. But even within this logic, there are cracks filled with gentler colors. Princess Bubblegum feels emotion deeply. She just channels it through structure, shaping her feelings into systems, rules, and strategies that keep the Candy Kingdom afloat. There is tenderness, even if it is hidden beneath a composed expression or a measured word. To PB, emotion without guidance feels like a river without banks. It may run freely and beautifully, but it can also flood and overwhelm. So she builds careful channels, lining the edges with stone, making sure the water moves where it needs to, safe and contained. This philosophy often places her at a quiet crossroads with Marceline, whose heart flows freely, unbound by walls or structure. The two of them share a bond that runs deep beneath centuries of tangled history. Yet it is a bond built on a delicate balance. Where Marceline expresses, PB processes. Where Marceline feels openly, PB holds herself steady. Their philosophies may differ, but they weave together in a way that reflects an old truth. Sometimes logic seeks emotion, the way dawn seeks the horizon. And sometimes emotion seeks logic the way waves seek the shore. Two forces that seem so different, yet find their meaning in how they meet. PB's belief in order shapes her view of morality. She rarely sees things in terms of simple right or wrong. Instead, she considers consequences, weighing them the way one weighs ingredients in a careful recipe. She chooses what will preserve the kingdom, even if that choice feels heavy on her shoulders. These moments reveal the complexity of her philosophy. She is not a tyrant, though she has walked close to that line, nor is she a selfless hero. She is something more intricate, more human, even though she is not human at all. She is a ruler who believes that the world can only be safe when someone is willing to bear the burden of structure, even if that burden grows lonely. There is a quiet loneliness in logic when it becomes a shield. P feels this more often than she admits. The late nights, the long silences, the decisions she cannot share. Her people adore her, but they do not understand the weight she carries. Only a few have glimpsed the softer heart beneath her precise exterior. Among them are Finn, Jake, and of course Marceline, who knows better than anyone that PB's mind may be sharp, but her heart is soft in ways she rarely shows. And yet even with those closest to her, Princess Bubblegum often keeps a quiet distance, as though she fears that if she lets herself relax even for a moment, the delicate balance she maintains will slip from her hands. Her mind is always gently humming with thought, like a machine that never fully powers down. She carries the memory of past disasters the way others carry childhood stories. They linger in her, shaping her instincts, reminding her that peace is fragile and must be protected with steady, intentional care. In this way, PB's philosophy becomes almost ceremonial. Every plan she drafts, every experiment she conducts, every law she enforces, even the smallest decision, carries an air of ritual purpose. To outsiders, it might look rigid, even controlling. But from within her perspective, it is an act of devotion. She is a guardian of a kingdom built on joy, and joy, she knows, is precious. It must be tended. It must be watched over with patience and clarity. Without her quiet discipline, she fears that all of it could crumble. There is something tender in the way she acknowledges her own flaws within this philosophy. She is painfully aware that her need for order can cause harm. She has seen moments where her plans overshadowed the voices of her people, where her logical solutions bruised emotional truths. These memories rest in her like tiny seeds of regret, growing slowly into a deeper understanding. Over time, PB learns to soften the edges of her approach. She learns to listen more, to trust more, to let go when the moment calls for it. Her philosophy does not remain fixed. It shifts, just a little, allowing light to enter where once there was only structure. This growth is beautifully visible in her relationship with Finn. Though she cares for him deeply, she understands the necessity of boundaries for both their sake. She watches him mature from an eager young hero into someone who grapples with the world's complexities. And in that growth, she sees reflections of herself. She sees how logic and empathy can coexist, how one can protect without smothering, guide without controlling. Finn's presence reminds her that the world is not a machine to be perfectly calibrated. It is a living place, full of unexpected turns, and sometimes the best course of action is to allow those turns to unfold naturally. Even so, PB cannot fully abandon her instincts. She continues to build, to plan, to analyze. In her lab, she speaks softly to her creations, not out of command, but out of gentle companionship. She adjusts circuits with the same careful touch she uses to comfort her citizens. She examines bubbling beakers as though she is studying tiny galaxies. Her scientific mind is not driven by cold calculation, but by a quiet affection for the mysteries of existence. To her, knowledge is a form of love. To understand something deeply is to care for it deeply. This perspective is especially visible in how she views her candy citizens. They are not just subjects. They are extensions of her heart, formed from her science, yet filled with innocence and joy. Their safety is her highest responsibility. She knows each one of them is fragile, made of sugar and softness, and she cannot bear the thought of harm reaching them. This is why she sometimes oversteps, why she builds defenses that appear strict, why she monitors threats with such relentless watchfulness. Her philosophy is shaped by the idea that protecting those you love sometimes means holding the line, even when others might not understand why. But beneath this unwavering sense of duty, there is a quiet longing within PB, a longing for a moment where she can simply breathe without thinking several steps ahead, a longing to set aside her careful calculations and let her heart rest in a space free from responsibility. It is rare for her to indulge in such moments, but when she does, they reveal a side of her that feels achingly human, a side that laughs freely and that reminisces, that allows herself to lean on others. Marceline sees this side most clearly. In the privacy of their shared moments, far from the eyes of the kingdom, PB allows her logic to soften into feeling. She lets herself speak without analyzing every word. She lets emotion flow in the spaces where, for so long, she built walls. Marceline's presence becomes a gentle reminder that control is not the only path to safety. Sometimes, safety is found in trust, in letting someone hold part of the burden she has carried alone. This interplay between logic and vulnerability forms the core of PB's philosophy. She believes in structure, yes, but she also believes in growth. She believes in rationality, but she understands the value of emotion. And slowly, quietly, she learns to weave these two threads together, creating a tapestry of balance that reflects her evolving heart. And so, PB's philosophy of order and care is never static. It is a living, breathing framework, as delicate and intricate as the candy kingdom itself. Every morning she wakes, she carries in her mind a network of possibilities, contingencies, and outcomes. She considers the ripple effects of every action, not out of fear, but out of reverence for life. Her devotion to logic is, at its core, a devotion to the people she cherishes, a way of translating the infinite warmth of her heart into tangible, protective measures. In her, rationality and affection do not clash. They dance together in quiet harmony, each step precise yet full of intent. Yet even within this discipline, PB is intimately aware of the limitations of logic. She understands, perhaps better than anyone, that no system is perfect. The Candy Kingdom is full of surprises, small rebellions, and unpredictable joy. These are not flaws, she knows, but the natural expression of life itself. And so her philosophy is flexible, like a tree bending with the wind rather than snapping. She learns to anticipate disorder, not with rigid fear, but with a tempered readiness that allows for spontaneity without chaos. In her view, order is not the absence of unpredictability. It is the presence of thoughtful guidance amidst it. This careful guidance extends beyond mere governance into the intimate spaces of her relationships. Her bond with Finn, though often subtle, carries the wisdom of someone who sees not just who he is, but who he might become. She watches him with a gentle scrutiny, aware that his youthful bravery is both a gift and a vulnerability. Through her interactions with him, PB's philosophy expands. Protection is not solely about preemptive control, but also about offering space for growth. She begins to understand that logic can coexist with trust, and that sometimes the most loving act is to let go, even just a little, and allow others to navigate the world in their own ways. Her relationship with Marceline is another prism through which PB's philosophy can be understood. Marceline embodies freedom, emotion, and the unpredictable currents of life. Everything PB meticulously plans for, yet cannot fully tame. And in this contrast, PB discovers subtle truths. Emotion is not the enemy of order, but its companion. She sees that feelings, when acknowledged and respected, can guide decisions with wisdom that logic alone cannot provide. In these moments, PB's philosophy softens, revealing the profound depth of her capacity for empathy. Her care becomes not just structural but relational, an art form in which love is encoded in the gentle balance between reason and feeling. Princess Bubblegum's philosophy also carries a quiet reflection on mortality and impermanence. She understands that all structures, no matter how carefully constructed, are ultimately temporary. The world is in flux, and the Candy Kingdom, her greatest achievement, is not immune. This awareness does not paralyze her. Rather, it enriches her sense of purpose. She works diligently, knowing that every measure she takes is a tender acknowledgement of fragility. Her actions are imbued with the recognition that life is fleeting and precious, and that vigilance, tempered with kindness, is a sacred act. Even in moments of solitude, when the corridors of the palace are empty and the laboratories echo with the hum of machines, PB's mind is alive with the contemplation. She reflects on her past mistakes, on the times her strict adherence to logic caused unintended pain. She weighs each memory with gentle scrutiny, understanding that philosophy is not static, but a practice of continual refinement. In this quiet meditation, she learns patience not only with others but with herself, realizing that her role is not to be perfect, but to strive for thoughtful, conscientious care. There is a subtle poetry in PB's approach to life. It is visible in the way she tends to the Candy Kingdom's gardens, arranging plants with precision, yet allowing them room to grow in their own directions. It is visible in the way she mentors her citizens, guiding without smothering, encouraging without forcing. Her philosophy is a quiet song of responsibility, a melody that blends duty and affection, intellect and heart. Each note, carefully chosen, resonates with the understanding that leadership is not about domination, but about stewardship. Not about control alone, but about nurturing what is delicate, transient, and beautiful. Her approach to conflict also reflects this philosophy. When crises arise, PB rarely acts from impulse. She observes, analyzes, and anticipates. Her strategies are never cold exercises of power. They are thoughtful, precise responses designed to minimize harm while protecting what is most vital. Yet within this calculation, there is compassion. She weighs the suffering of others as seriously as she weighs outcomes. And in this careful balance, her logic becomes humane. She is both protector and philosopher, ruler and caretaker, a mind that measures with rigor yet loves without restraint. And so, Princess Bubblegum exists in a delicate equilibrium between mind and heart, logic and feeling, order and care. Her philosophy teaches that true responsibility is not the absence of emotion, but its careful integration into action. Her world is one of structure, yes, but it is also a world suffused with gentle intent, with subtle warmth hidden beneath layers of thought and planning. To follow her through the quiet hours of her life is to understand that love, in its truest form, is often measured not in words, but in the patient, unwavering application of wisdom, the steady shaping of a world where others may live freely and safely. In her quiet moments, PB allows herself glimpses of wonder. A candy citizen's laugh drifting through a courtyard, the soft glow of dusk on crystalline walls, the hum of a machine perfectly balanced. All of these remind her that her philosophy is not only a means of control, but a way of participating in the beauty of life. Logic, order, and care in her hands are acts of reverence, affirmations that even in a world shaped by past devastation, tenderness can flourish. Her philosophy is, above all, a quiet testament to the possibility of harmonizing intellect and affection, of finding calm and vigilance, and of letting love take form not only in emotion, but in thoughtful action. And in the softest hours of the night, when the Candy Kingdom is wrapped in a gentle stillness, and the stars sprinkle their quiet light over the pastel roofs, Princess Bubblegum's philosophy shows its most delicate contours. Alone in her chambers, she sometimes allows herself to breathe, to release the tension of constant calculation, and to reflect on the broader currents that guide her choices. In these moments, she understands that her life is a continual balancing act, a dance between foresight and presence, between the weight of duty and the quiet joys of being alive. Her philosophy is not simply about governance. It is about existence, lived thoughtfully, with consciousness and care. Princess Bubblegum's approach to relationships further reveals the depth of her worldview. With Marceline, there is an intricate interplay of logic and emotion that manifests in subtle gestures, a shared glance, a carefully considered word, a pause that carries more meaning than a declaration ever could. PB's philosophy teaches that emotion is powerful, but without careful handling, it can destabilize. Marceline's free-spirited nature gently challenges this belief, reminding PB that vulnerability and spontaneity are not threats, but truths. In learning to navigate this delicate tension, PB demonstrates that her logic is not rigid, but flexible, capable of bending to accommodate connection without losing its grounding and responsibility. Her philosophy extends even to her understanding of conflict and morality. Decisions in PB's world are rarely black and white. She considers outcomes, ethical consequences, and the nuances of human or candy behavior. Her choice to act is always weighed against multiple futures, and she carries the knowledge that the right path is often the one that protects the greatest good, even at a personal or emotional cost. In her mind, morality is measured not by the purity of intent alone, but by the effects of action. To love is to anticipate, to plan, and when necessary, to sacrifice. It is this intricate balance that defines PB's character, and her philosophy is inseparable from the very essence of her being. PB's philosophy also reflects a quiet meditation on impermanence. She is aware that even the structures she builds, her laboratories, the palace, the very architecture of the Candy Kingdom, cannot last forever. Everything is transient, and yet she does not despair. Instead, she works with the impermanence in mind, shaping systems and protections that honor the delicate, ephemeral nature of life. In this way, her philosophy mirrors the cycles of the natural world, acknowledging decay and growth, change and continuity, order and renewal. She is a guardian of both form and flux, a thinker who perceives the world in layers of complexity, knowing that stability is not stasis, but a living balance maintained through the constant attention and care. Her philosophy is also revealed in her subtle gestures of empathy. She may correct a misbehaving candy citizen, not out of anger, but from a place of understanding that guidance is often more valuable than punishment. She listens to the concerns of her people with an ear trained to detect not only what is said, but what is left unsaid, understanding that the well-being of her kingdom relies on seeing beneath the surface. In this, her logic becomes a tool not for domination, but for deep relational understanding. PB's philosophy teaches that true wisdom arises when intellect is married to compassion, when careful thought is used to nurture rather than merely control. In the quiet moments shared with those she trusts, PB allows the soft edges of her philosophy to show more fully. With Finn, she encourages growth, subtly guiding him without taking away his freedom to explore. With Jake, she observes his relaxed, flowing approach to life, and perhaps, just slightly, it teaches her the value of ease amidst responsibility. And with Marceline, she experiences the richness of emotional truth, learning that vulnerability can be both a strength and a source of profound connection. Her philosophy is not solitary. It interacts with others, evolving as she navigates the delicate webs of relationships that define her world. Princess Bubblegum's worldview ultimately reflects a quiet, enduring lesson: that love and logic are not opposites, but partners in shaping a life that is both protective and expressive. She embodies the understanding that care is most meaningful when combined with foresight, that authority is most just when tempered with empathy, and that even in a post-apocalyptic landscape, where danger and chaos linger just beyond the horizon, there is space for tenderness, beauty, and growth. She teaches us that to live wisely is to balance thought with feeling, control with trust, and order with freedom, creating a world that can thrive despite fragility. And so, as the night deepens and the glow of the Candy Kingdom softens under the moon's gentle light, we can imagine Princess Bubblegum in her laboratory or walking quietly among the rooftops, her mind alive with careful contemplation, her heart quietly attuned to the well-being of her people. Her philosophy is a guiding thread, weaving together intellect, emotion, and responsibility, reminding us that true care is measured not in grand gestures, but in the thoughtful, persistent acts that preserve life and love in all their delicate, luminous forms. In understanding PB, we understand a philosophy that values both reason and heart, and we glimpse the quiet power of a mind that thinks, a heart that loves, and a soul that endures. Now, sleepyheads, let us drift gently from the careful, structured world of Princess Bubblegum into a very different rhythm, the rhythm of Marceline, the vampire queen. Imagine a night sky stretched wide above a forest that hums with the quiet pulse of the unseen. The air carries the faint scent of earth and moss, a reminder of time's slow passage. Here in these shadows exists a being whose philosophy is drawn from feeling, from memory, from the raw poetry of experience. Marceline's world is not built on rules or measured outcomes, but on the currents of emotion and the intimate truths that linger behind centuries of life. Marceline's philosophy begins with the recognition that emotion is not something to be tamed, but something to be embraced. She flows with it like water over stones, letting joy, sorrow, anger, and tenderness intermingle without judgment. She understands deeply that the human, or vampire heart, is complex and sometimes contradictory. She honors these contradictions rather than resolving them, believing that the full spectrum of feeling is what gives life its richness. In her mind, to deny emotion is to deny the essence of existence itself. This belief is inseparable from her long life. Marceline has carried memories across centuries, some luminous and playful, others dark and painful. She remembers the world before the Mushroom War, and the remnants of that world whisper through her thoughts like echoes from a dream. These memories shape her philosophy. The past is a companion, not a burden. Each recollection, whether joyful or sorrowful, carries insight, and she allows herself to feel it fully. Her approach to life is a dialogue between who she was, who she is, and who she might become, a constant negotiation with the weight of time and the lessons it brings. Her music is the clearest reflection of this worldview. When she plays her bass, or when her voice floats in the quiet night, there is a raw honesty that cannot be masked by logic or pretense. The songs are confessions, explorations, and invitations all at once. Through them, Marceline expresses grief without shame, love without calculation, and longing without apology. Her philosophy is performed as much as it is lived, and in every note there is a teaching that to feel deeply, to acknowledge the fullness of experience, is itself a form of wisdom. Marceline's sense of chaos is also essential to her way of seeing the world. It is not chaos in the sense of disorder for its own sake, but chaos as an honest reflection of life's unpredictability. She recognizes that the universe cannot be fully controlled, and she chooses to dance with it rather than resist it. This approach can appear reckless, especially to those accustomed to structure, but in truth, it is deliberate. Marceline embraces uncertainty because she understands that true authenticity cannot exist in rigid confines. Life's beauty often emerges precisely where structure fails, and she allows herself and those she loves to exist in that liminal space. Even in her relationships, this philosophy is evident. With Princess Bubblegum, Marceline's openness contrasts PB's measured care, creating a tension that is both delicate and profound. Marceline does not shy away from expressing her feelings, even when they are inconvenient or messy. She trusts that honesty, even in its most chaotic form, can create connection rather than destroy it. She understands that vulnerability is not weakness, but a courageous act of presence. Her bond with Finn and Jake offers yet another lens into her worldview. She can be playful and mischievous with them, teasing and challenging, but always with an underlying thread of attentiveness. She senses their emotions and responds intuitively, guiding without overt control. Through this, she reveals a philosophy rooted in empathy, in the recognition that people are not merely problems to be solved, but lives to be witnessed, understood, and sometimes simply shared in quiet companionship. Marceline's relationship to memory is also inseparable from her philosophy. She collects moments not as trophies, but as living evidence of experience. Each memory carries weight, but not always in the form of pain. Some memories are soft with laughter, others tinged with nostalgia or melancholy. Her philosophy recognizes that memory shapes identity, and identity shapes perception. She does not strive to forget or idealize the past. She lets it coexist with the present, allowing its truths to inform her choices without dictating them. Her acceptance of impermanence is another pillar of her worldview. Marceline knows that nothing lasts forever, neither joy nor sorrow, neither life nor loss. This understanding does not lead her to despair. Instead, it infuses her experiences with tenderness. Each moment, fleeting and fragile, becomes more precious. She moves through the world aware that attachment need not mean possession, that love can exist without clinging, and that memories can sustain without imprisoning. In this way, her philosophy is profoundly liberating, both to herself and to those who share her space. Even in solitude, Marceline's philosophy hums quietly around her. When she wanders the night, floating through forests or atop rooftops, she listens to the wind and remembers the songs of the past. She considers the lives she has touched, the people she has loved, and the truths she has uncovered in her long existence. Her thoughts are never linear. They twist and coil like smoke, sometimes dark, sometimes luminous, but always honest. In her, feeling is a compass, memory is a map, and chaos is the terrain through which she navigates with grace. Her sense of self is deeply intertwined with the acknowledgement of contradictions. She is powerful, yet vulnerable. She is mischievous, yet deeply empathetic. She is immortal, yet intimately aware of impermanence. Her philosophy teaches that complexity is not something to be simplified, but something to be embraced, and that a life fully felt is richer than a life fully controlled. This philosophy, lived with gentle defiance and quiet courage, offers a window into a way of being that celebrates authenticity above all. reminding us that truth often resides not in neatness or certainty, but in the honest embrace of the unpredictable currents of existence. Marceline's approach to decision-making mirrors this philosophy. She does not rely on rigid rules or universal truths. Instead, she listens to her intuition, weighing the emotional and ethical dimensions of a situation with sensitivity. She understands that life's moral landscapes are rarely clear-cut, and she allows her heart to guide her choices, tempered by her long experience and the lessons carried in memory. In this way, her philosophy is both deeply personal and profoundly human, rooted in the lived realities of a life stretched across centuries, shaped by love, loss, joy, and sorrow. Her philosophy is perhaps most visible in moments of play and creativity. Whether crafting a song, floating through the night sky, or engaging in gentle mischief with friends, Marceline exemplifies the belief that life is to be experienced fully, without apology. She does not suppress what she feels. She amplifies it, letting it flow through her art, her laughter, her music. She teaches that emotion, when acknowledged and expressed, has the power to transform ordinary moments into experiences of quiet profundity, and that memory, when honored, becomes a guide rather than a burden. Sleepyheads, imagine her strumming her bass beneath the silver glow of the moon, the soft echo of each note reverberating through the trees, carrying with it centuries of thought and feeling. Every sound she produces is a reflection of her philosophy, honest, unrestrained, and alive. In her, we see a world where feeling is central, memory is treasured, and chaos is embraced, not as fearsome, but as an authentic rhythm of life. Her philosophy is a quiet revolution against rigidness, a tender insistence that existence is richest when lived fully, with eyes, heart, and soul wide open. Marceline's philosophy of feeling and memory also shapes the way she approaches connection. Unlike those who might prioritize logic or obligation, she forms bonds through authenticity, through presence, and through a willingness to be seen fully, even when that seeing exposes vulnerability. When she shares a quiet moment with someone, whether a friend, a companion, or a fleeting acquaintance, she does so with an awareness that every interaction is part of a larger tapestry of experience. She listens not just to words, but to pauses, to silences, to the subtle cadence of emotion that floats beneath speech. To Marceline, understanding is not imposed. It is gathered gently, like dew on a leaf, with care and attention. Her interactions with Princess Bubblegum are particularly revealing in this regard. Marceline's openness challenges PB's measured caution, and in that interplay, we see the tension and harmony between two very different philosophies. Where PB seeks control as a form of care, Marceline embraces freedom as a form of authenticity. She understands that love is not always orderly, and that emotions cannot always be neatly categorized or directed. Yet despite the apparent chaos, Marceline's love carries its own structure, an emotional integrity that holds together through honesty, consistency, and presence. She allows PB to step outside her strict frameworks, teaching that connection often requires risk and surrender. This philosophy is also visible in her playful, adventurous side. Marceline does not shy away from taking life lightly, from embracing whimsy or mischief. Yet, beneath the surface, there is a deep intentionality. Her actions may seem spontaneous, but they are guided by a finely tuned understanding of human or supernatural nature. She knows that laughter and levity are as vital to existence as careful planning and foresight. In a world scarred by past devastation, she understands that joy, even when fleeting, is a form of resilience. Her philosophy asserts that embracing happiness and embracing pain are not opposites, but intertwined, each giving meaning to the other. Memory, in particular, plays a central role in Marceline's worldview. Her centuries-long life has given her a perspective few can imagine. She remembers friends lost, loves departed, worlds transformed. These recollections are not burdens she tries to discard. Rather, they are integral to her understanding of herself and the universe. She carries them lightly with acceptance, weaving lessons learned from past experiences into her present choices. In this way, memory becomes a compass, guiding her through uncertainty and informing her relationships with an awareness that is both tender and wise. Yet Marceline's philosophy does not shy away from acknowledging pain. She confronts loss, betrayal, and sorrow with a courage that is quiet but profound. She does not mask grief, nor does she allow it to define her entirely. Instead, she integrates it into her understanding of life, recognizing that sorrow is inseparable from joy, that the two exist in balance. To Marceline, to feel deeply is to live fully. She teaches that avoidance of pain is a denial of life itself, and that embracing both light and shadow is essential to authenticity. Her philosophy also extends to her sense of self. Marceline is acutely aware of her own contradictions, immortal yet profoundly human in her emotional depth, playful yet introspective, independent yet deeply relational. She accepts these contradictions not as flaws, but as truths that give her life richness and texture. In doing so, she models a form of self-knowledge and self-compassion that is rare in any world, mortal or magical. She does not seek perfection, nor does she measure herself against external expectations. Instead, she cultivates an inner life that honors all aspects of her being, embracing complexity rather than seeking simplicity. Even in moments of solitude, Marceline's philosophy resonates. When she drifts through forests, floats above cities, or rests beneath a sky painted with the gentle glow of stars, she engages with the world through feeling, through reflection, through a quiet attention to the textures of life. She notices the subtle shifts in light, the soft hum of insects, the distant echoes of voices carried by wind. To her, existence is an intricate symphony, each note worthy of attention, each sound worthy of remembrance. Her philosophy insists on immersion, on being present, on recognizing the profound significance in the small and fleeting. In her creative expressions, we see the philosophy of honest chaos most clearly. Marceline does not seek perfection in her music, her art, or her actions. She values authenticity above all, believing the truth lies in the genuine, the heartfelt, the lived experience. Imperfection, unpredictability, and raw expression are not failures to her. They are the very essence of life's richness. Her philosophy teaches that beauty emerges not from control or predictability, but from the courage to be fully, unabashedly alive. Marceline's worldview challenges the structures around her gently, persistently. She does not rebel for the sake of rebellion, nor does she impose her perspective on others. Instead, she demonstrates through presence, through music, and through emotional integrity that life is most meaningful when it is lived with honesty, courage, and a willingness to embrace both joy and sorrow. She exemplifies a philosophy that sees emotion not as a complication to be managed, but as a guiding light, a lens through which all experiences gain depth and resonance. As we continue to drift with her through the quiet spaces of the night, we can imagine Marceline seated upon a rooftop, guitar in hand, her voice carrying soft truths across the sleeping world. The stars above seem to respond, each note a gentle reminder of memory, feeling, and the beauty found in chaos. Her philosophy whispers to us through the wind, a tender invitation to embrace our own emotions, to honor our memories, and to live fully, honestly, and unafraid. Sleepyheads, Her world teaches that life's depth is found not in rigidity, but in openness, not in certainty, but in the courageous acceptance of what it means to feel. Marceline's philosophy is not confined to grand gestures or sweeping actions. It lives in the quiet moments, the soft touches of her presence, and the attentiveness she brings to the lives around her. She understands that authenticity is often expressed in subtle ways. A shared silence that speaks volumes, a hand offered without expectation, a song played in the gentle glow of twilight. Her worldview recognizes that life's depth is often hidden in these fleeting, almost imperceptible moments. By honoring them, she teaches that connection is less about control or instruction and more about attentiveness, empathy, and wholehearted engagement with the present. Her approach to love is similarly nuanced. Marceline does not view affection as a transaction or a rule to be followed. She loves with openness, curiosity, and a readiness to feel deeply, knowing that emotion carries both risk and reward. Her relationships are built on honesty and a willingness to face the vulnerabilities inherent in attachment. She trusts those who choose to enter her orbit with the same care she offers to her memories, not to possess or control, but to witness and respond. This philosophy fosters connections that are resilient, not because they are rigidly maintained, but because they are rooted in truth, empathy, and a recognition of the impermanence and beauty of each shared moment. There is also a remarkable humility within Marceline's worldview. Though she is immortal and possesses powers that far exceed those of most beings in she does not let her abilities distance her from the raw experiences of life. She understands that power is not inherently meaningful without feeling, without engagement, without attention to the subtleties of existence. Her immortality gives her perspective, yet it does not grant her detachment. She carries her memories as both a privilege and a responsibility, using them to inform her choices, temper her actions, and deepen her empathy. Her philosophy asserts that the value of life is measured not in duration or strength, but in the depth of experience and the authenticity with which it is lived. This philosophy also allows Marceline to navigate conflict with a unique grace. She does not shy away from confrontation when necessary, but she approaches it with understanding and intention. She reads the emotions of others with remarkable precision, often anticipating responses before they are voiced. Her decisions are guided by an awareness of the emotional consequences of her actions, and by a desire to act in ways that honor the truth of a situation. She values dialogue and expression over suppression, and she seeks resolution through understanding rather than dominance. In this, her philosophy offers a quiet yet profound form of leadership, one that demonstrates how emotional intelligence can shape not only personal growth, but the lives of others. Marceline's embrace of chaos is also intertwined with her understanding of time. She does not cling to moments, nor does she fear their passing. Instead, she moves fluidly with the life's currents, allowing events to unfold naturally while engaging fully with each experience. This approach grants her a remarkable resilience. She adapts to change, she navigates uncertainty with ease, and she maintains a sense of wonder even in the face of loss or adversity. Her philosophy teaches that life's unpredictability is not a threat to be controlled, but a dynamic force to be navigated with presence, grace, and an open heart. Her songs, in particular, exemplify this philosophy. Each note carries layers of memory, feeling, and reflection. When she plays, she draws on the entirety of her lived experience, transforming pain into beauty, nostalgia into melody, and love into a tangible expression of truth. Music becomes a conduit for her philosophy, a way of articulating the intangible wisdom of a life fully experienced. Through her art, she communicates lessons about authenticity, vulnerability, and the importance of honoring emotion as a guiding principle. Even Marceline's sense of humor reflects her philosophical depth. Her wit is often dry, playful, and tinged with melancholy, revealing her keen perception of life's absurdities and contradictions. She recognizes that humor can be a tool for connection, reflection, and resilience. By embracing the playful alongside the profound, she demonstrates that her philosophy is not rigid or solemn, but rich, multidimensional, and alive. Life is to be felt in all its textures, joy, sorrow, light, and shadow, and her philosophy embraces each in turn. Marceline's understanding of self is inseparable from her philosophy of memory and feeling. She does not seek to simplify or suppress her complexities. Instead, she allows herself to exist fully within them, acknowledging both her strengths and her vulnerabilities. She understands that identity is not static, but fluid, shaped by experience, reflection, and choice. Her philosophy encourages an intimate exploration of self, recognizing that to know oneself deeply is to engage honestly with both emotion and memory, and to navigate life with courage, curiosity, and empathy. Her philosophy also emphasizes the interconnection of all things. Marceline sees relationships, experiences, and memories as part of a larger web, each influencing the other in subtle, often unseen ways. She understands that her actions ripple outward, touching lives in ways both direct and indirect. This awareness does not paralyze her. Instead, it deepens her engagement with the world. She moves thoughtfully, guided by a sense of responsibility tempered by compassion and a profound respect for the lived realities of others. In solitude or in the company of others, Marceline demonstrates a philosophy that honors the present while embracing the lessons of the past. She is a witness to the unfolding tapestry of existence, and she teaches, through both word and action, that life's richness is found not in control or certainty, but in honest engagement with the full spectrum of experience. Her philosophy is an invitation to feel deeply, to remember fully, and to navigate the unpredictable currents of life with openness, courage, and grace. As the night continues, we can picture Marceline perched atop a gently swaying treetop, her base resting against her shoulder, fingers tracing the strings in a pattern that echoes both memory and emotion. Each note drifts into the quiet night, carrying with it the essence of her philosophy. The feeling is fundamental, memory is sacred, and chaos, when embraced with honesty, reveals the profound beauty of existence. Sleepyheads, in her presence, we are reminded that the courage to feel fully, to remember deeply, and to live authentically is among the most enduring philosophies a being can hold. Marceline's philosophy becomes particularly striking when considered alongside her immortality. Unlike most beings, she has witnessed the passage of centuries, watching the world shift and crumble, watching people she has loved change or vanish entirely. This long perspective gives her a deep understanding of impermanence and the fragility of existence. Yet rather than retreat into cynicism or detachment, she approaches life with an astonishing openness. She carries the weight of memory not as a burden, but as a source of wisdom, allowing it to inform her choices without dictating them. She knows that attachment can be both beautiful and painful, and she learns to hold both experiences with equal care. In doing so, she models a philosophy that balances awareness of loss with a celebration of presence. Her philosophy of feeling is inseparable from her relationship with love, both romantic and platonic. Marceline does not approach connection as something to be mastered or controlled. She allows it to flow freely, guided by authenticity and mutual understanding. This is evident in her relationship with Princess Bubblegum, where emotion and memory intertwine with playful mischief and tender honesty. Marceline trusts that vulnerability can foster intimacy, even when it exposes the raw, messy edges of the heart. Her worldview acknowledges that love, like life itself, is unpredictable, but it is precisely in this unpredictability that meaning is found. Marceline also teaches that joy and play are philosophical imperatives, not frivolities. Her whimsical, sometimes mischievous behavior is not a distraction from the seriousness of life. It is a response to it. She understands that lightness and laughter are forms of resilience, tools to navigate the weight of memory and the gravity of existence. In every song, every prank, every moment of spontaneous fun, Marceline embodies a belief that engagement with life should be full-bodied, that to exist fully is to embrace both sorrow and delight without apology. At the same time, Marceline's philosophy embraces shadow. She does not shy away from grief, anger, or regret, and she does not attempt to sanitize her experience for comfort or social approval. In the honesty of her emotions, she finds clarity. To feel deeply is to understand oneself and the world with nuance. She teaches that emotions are not obstacles, but guides, signaling truth and providing insight into our relationships, decisions, and identities. Her philosophy is radical in its simplicity. The path to wisdom is through feeling, not around it. Her approach to creativity also reflects this philosophy. Music and art are not merely expressions, but tools for exploration, for understanding the self, and for communicating experience in ways that transcend words alone. In creating, Marceline engages with her memories, emotions, and the unpredictable flow of life, transforming them into forms that can be shared, experienced, and felt by others. Her philosophy suggests that art is a bridge between inner truth and outer expression, a means of navigating chaos while honoring the depth and complexity of existence. Even in moments of solitude, Marceline's philosophy resonates. When she floats through the night, wings outstretched beneath the moon, or rests atop a quiet building, she engages deeply with the world around her. She observes, she reflects, she remembers. Every movement, every breath, every glance carries intention, born from a long life of observation and introspection. She demonstrates that solitude is not emptiness, but a space for reflection, for the integration of memory and emotion, for the cultivation of wisdom that can only emerge when one listens to the currents of life without distraction or pretense. Marceline's worldview also emphasizes the interconnection of all experiences, joy and sorrow, past and present, freedom and responsibility. They are not isolated phenomena, but threads in a single, intricate tapestry. She understands that her choices ripple outward, influencing others in ways that may be subtle or profound. In this awareness, she exercises a careful attention, responding not out of calculation, but out of a deep, empathetic engagement with the world. Her philosophy is relational. It acknowledges that existence is shaped not just by self, but by the interplay of lives, emotions, and memories that surround her. This philosophy extends to her understanding of identity. Marceline does not seek to simplify or flatten herself into easily recognizable traits. She embraces her contradictions, powerful yet vulnerable, playful yet introspective, immortal yet deeply affected by impermanence. She recognizes that identity is dynamic, shaped by both internal reflection and external experience. By accepting herself fully, she models a philosophy of authenticity that encourages others to embrace their own complexity. Her existence is a testament to the beauty of a life unbound by rigid expectations, a life that honors both freedom and responsibility in equal measure. In her relationships with others, Marceline demonstrates that trust and connection are built through presence, not control. She allows people to reveal themselves gradually, responding with empathy and understanding. Her approach is gentle yet profound. She honors the emotional truth of each encounter, recognizing that connection is a living, evolving process. In doing so, she embodies a philosophy in which honesty, emotional attunement, and respect for autonomy are central, teaching us that authentic engagement requires patience, courage, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. Marceline's philosophy is further revealed in how she navigates loss. She does not attempt to erase or forget pain. She integrates it into her understanding of the world. Memories of loss, of past loves, of departed friends, become threads woven into the fabric of her being. They inform her decisions, deepen her empathy, and enrich her art and relationships. In this, she teaches a profound lesson, that suffering, when acknowledged and embraced, is not a liability, but a source of insight, resilience, and depth. Her philosophy embraces the totality of experience, affirming that all emotions, joyful, painful, or bittersweet, have value and meaning. As the night stretches on, we can picture Marceline perched above the quiet cityscape, the strings of her bass echoing softly in the moonlight, carrying centuries of memory, emotion, and insight. Each note is a reflection of her philosophy, that life is best lived through honest engagement, that emotion is wisdom, and that memory is a compass, guiding the choices we make and the connections we nurture. Sleepyheads, through her, we are reminded that the courage to feel, the attention to remember, and the embrace of chaos are not merely ways of surviving existence. They are ways of honoring it fully, deeply, and authentically. We will continue to explore Marceline's philosophy further, considering how her lived experience, her immortality, and her connections with others illuminate a worldview built on feeling, memory, and the honest navigation of life's unpredictable currents. Tonight we shift our gaze toward a figure whose life carries the quiet weight of centuries, whose philosophy is not built on control or indulgence, but on the acceptance of what it means to be human. Simon Petrikov, known to many as the Ice King, is a study in the fragility of identity, the passage of time, and the enduring resilience of compassion. His story is one of profound loss, of the slow unraveling of memory and reason, and yet, within that unraveling, we can trace the gentle contours of a philosophy rooted in humanity itself. Simon's life before the crown was marked by curiosity, intelligence, and a love that was at once tender and precise. He was a scholar, fascinated by history, art, and the mysteries of the world. In this early period, one sees the seeds of his philosophical perspective, a mind attuned to observation, analysis, and understanding. Yet beneath the intellect, there was a heart that cared deeply. He loved deeply. His affection for young Marceline was not possessive or domineering. It was protective, nurturing, and profoundly human. This love would become the anchor of his remaining sense of self, the quiet force that persisted even as everything else fell away. The acquisition of the ice crown and the gradual descent into the madness it imposed represents one of the most poignant explorations of loss in adventure time. Simon's philosophy emerges not despite this tragedy, but through it. He experiences the disintegration of memory, the erosion of reason, and yet, even as the crown's influence spreads, traces of his former self remain. These traces reveal a fundamental truth. The essence of humanity is not solely defined by cognition or control, but by empathy, attachment, and the capacity to care. Simon's philosophical lesson is that even when the world strips away clarity and power, the human heart endures, quietly asserting itself in acts of kindness and protection. One of the most profound aspects of Simon's philosophy is his acceptance of limitations. He understands, even in the midst of his struggles, that he cannot hold on to everything. He cannot reverse the changes wrought by the crown, nor can he reclaim the life he once had. This awareness does not lead him to despair in the purely nihilistic sense, but to a quieter, reflective form of acceptance. He chooses, where possible, to protect Marceline, to honor her safety and well-being, even when doing so requires sacrifice or suffering. In this we see a philosophy grounded in responsibility, tempered by humility. Simon's moral compass is guided not by ambition or power, but by the recognition of what he can and cannot control. Simon's relationship with time is also deeply philosophical. He experiences time in a duality of past and present, where memories of his former life coexist with the fragmented, sometimes chaotic reality imposed by the crown. He does not resist this fragmentation, but adapts to it as best he can, holding onto the threads of his identity that remain unbroken. There is a quiet lesson here for us, that being human involves navigating the dissonance between who we were, who we are, and who we might become. It is in this tension that wisdom is often forged, through the reconciliation of memory, action, and circumstance. Even in moments when his reasoning falters, Simon's compassion shines through. Acts of kindness, subtle or overt, continue to define him. He intervenes to prevent harm, he provides guidance, and he demonstrates care for those around him in ways that transcend his own suffering. This highlights a central pillar of his philosophy. Humanity is measured not by perfection, but by the persistence of empathy, the willingness to act in accordance with what one perceives as right, even when doing so is difficult or painful. Simon's life illustrates that ethical behavior and moral integrity can exist even amidst personal chaos, and that the courage to continue caring is itself a form of wisdom. His philosophy also involves an intimate engagement with memory. Unlike Marceline, who carries centuries as a source of both beauty and instruction, Simon's memories are fragile, eroded by the crown's influence. Yet the fragments that remain are fiercely protected. In them lies the evidence of who he truly is, and through them, he maintains a connection to love, responsibility, and identity. Simon's philosophy teaches that memory, even partial or distorted, can anchor the soul, provide moral guidance, and sustain the heart when clarity and reason falter. Simon's understanding of identity is subtle and profound. He experiences the fracturing of self not as a total obliteration, but as a series of losses and recoveries, of moments where his true self shines through the crown's imposed persona. This reveals an essential truth in his philosophy. Being human is not about permanence, coherence, or mastery of circumstances. It is about resilience, adaptation, and the enduring presence of empathy and love amidst uncertainty and change. His life reminds us that identity is not a fixed point, but a constellation of experiences, memories, and choices, shaped by external forces yet profoundly rooted in the heart. Sleepyheads, imagine Simon in the quiet corners of his home before the transformation, surrounded by books and relics of a world that would soon vanish, his eyes tracing the lines of history, his mind alive with curiosity, and his heart quietly tethered to the child he would protect. Then imagine the gradual, haunting intrusion of the crown, reshaping not just his mind, but his existence. In this transition, we witness the philosophy of acceptance take form, the courage to endure loss, to recognize the limits of control, and to allow empathy to persist even when logic falters. Simon's philosophical approach also embraces the tension between agency and inevitability. He understands that not all events are within his control, yet he navigates life with careful attentiveness, making choices that preserve what he values most. This duality between what is lost and what can be preserved, between chaos and deliberate action, is central to his worldview. It emphasizes that humanity is not about absolute mastery over circumstances, but about how one chooses to engage with them, with dignity, care, and conscience. His philosophy is quietly heroic. It is not adorned with triumphs or declarations of power, but with small, persistent acts of love, protection, and remembrance. Simon demonstrates that heroism is not measured by victory over others, but by the courage to maintain one's humanity in the face of overwhelming adversity. Even when his memory falters, even when his reasoning is compromised, the core of his ethical and emotional self remains a steady beacon guiding his choices and relationships. We can envision Simon in moments of quiet reflection, perhaps watching Marceline sleep, or tracing the worn edges of a relic from his past, feeling the weight of what he has lost, and the responsibility of what remains. In these moments, his philosophy is revealed not through words, but through presence, attentiveness, and a steadfast commitment to care. Being human for Simon is an act of continual reconciliation, of past and present, loss and love, limitation and moral engagement. We will continue to explore Simon Petrikov's philosophy, delving deeper into how his experiences with love, suffering, and immortality shape his understanding of what it means to endure, to care, and ultimately, to remain human even when everything else is slipping away. Simon's philosophy is also deeply tied to the recognition of impermanence. He understands, perhaps more keenly than most, that nothing remains static. Not memory, not relationships, not even the self. The crown serves as both a literal and symbolic reminder of this truth. It strips away clarity, it erodes identity, and it challenges the persistence of morality. And yet, within this imposed chaos, Simon discovers a quiet form of acceptance. He learns that being human is not about clinging to permanence or certainty, but about engaging fully with the moments and connections that remain even when they are fleeting. This acceptance is not passive. It is active, a deliberate choice to preserve compassion and care despite the encroaching shadows of loss. His love for Marceline exemplifies this philosophy in its purest form. Simon does not attempt to shield her from every danger, nor does he seek to dominate her choices. Instead, he offers protection tempered with understanding, guidance balanced with respect for her autonomy. His actions reflect the belief that love is not possession, but stewardship, a willingness to nurture and safeguard without demanding control. In this, his philosophy is a profound meditation on relational ethics. That true care often requires humility, patience, and the courage to act even when outcomes are uncertain. Simon's relationship with time further illuminates his worldview. He experiences it as both linear and fragmented, with past, present, and future interwoven in ways that can be disorienting, yet instructive. He understands that the passage of time brings both gain and loss, and he engages with it thoughtfully, attempting to hold on to what is meaningful while recognizing the inevitability of change. In doing so, he models a philosophy of temporal mindfulness, a gentle attentiveness to the flow of life, the value of memory, and the responsibilities that endure even when circumstances shift beyond control. Even in moments when the crown's influence dominates, Simon's humanity persists in small gestures and decisions. He intervenes to protect those in need, he demonstrates care when logic fails, and he acts according to the values embedded deep within his core self. This persistence reveals a central tenet of his philosophy, that identity is resilient and that ethical and emotional truths can survive even when clarity and reason are compromised. To Simon, being human is not about perfection, but about the tenacity to preserve what is meaningful, to act with empathy, and to hold on to fragments of self that remain intact. The tragedy of Simon's story heightens the poignancy of this philosophy. He is a man caught between what he was and what he is becoming, between memory and loss, between reason and madness. And yet even in the midst of such dissonance, he maintains an ethical core. This teaches that being human is not measured by consistency or dominance over circumstance, but by the commitment to care, the willingness to act morally, and the courage to confront suffering with integrity. Simon's philosophy is not heroic in the conventional sense. It is quietly heroic, rooted in endurance, reflection, and love. Simon also teaches that suffering can be instructive. His experiences with the crown, the mushroom war, and the gradual erosion of his identity provide insight into the nature of attachment, loss, and moral responsibility. He comes to understand that suffering, when approached with consciousness and compassion, can illuminate what is truly valuable, what is worth protecting, and what it means to remain tethered to humanity even when much has been lost. This awareness does not eliminate pain, but it transforms it into a source of ethical and emotional insight. His life demonstrates the delicate balance between agency and inevitability. While many forces shape his existence, time, memory, the crown, he continually exercises choice in how to respond. These choices are rarely easy. They often require sacrifice, courage, and moral deliberation. Yet they reveal that the essence of being human lies not in control, but in the persistent engagement with life's complexities, in the careful navigation of loss, and in the quiet insistence on preserving empathy and love even when circumstances are harsh. Simon's philosophy also emphasizes the relational nature of existence. He does not live in isolation, nor does he view his life as independent of those around him. His actions, particularly toward Marceline, highlight the interconnectedness of lives, the responsibility we hold to one another, and the enduring power of care to shape both personal identity and the lives of others. To Simon, being human is not a solitary pursuit. It is a relational practice, lived through attentiveness, empathy, and the courage to love despite uncertainty. Even when he wanders the corridors of his memory or the ruins of a world forever changed, Simon remains reflective and conscientious. He contemplates the consequences of his actions, the nature of his identity, and the ethical imperative to preserve what is good, even in fragmentary form. His philosophy reminds us that humanity is measured not by mastery or control, but by resilience, compassion, and the deliberate engagement with the moral and emotional dimensions of existence. Sleepyheads. Picture Simon in the quiet hours before dawn, the air cool and still, tracing the edges of a relic from the past, watching over Marceline with a careful vigilance, and carrying within him centuries of knowledge, love, and loss. Each gesture, each thought, each decision embodies the philosophy of being human, not perfect, not omnipotent, but enduring, empathetic, and committed to what is meaningful. His story is a meditation on acceptance, on the reconciliation of memory and identity, and on the courage to remain present and compassionate, even as the world shifts and changes around him. We will continue to explore Simon Petrikov's philosophy, tracing how his experiences, his choices, and his enduring empathy illuminate a quiet, reflective, and deeply human approach to life, loss, and moral engagement. Simon Petrikov's philosophy extends beyond mere survival or moral correctness. It is a meditation on the essence of human experience, defined not by control or mastery over the world, but by the capacity to endure, to care, and to remain ethically and emotionally engaged despite circumstances that are often overwhelming. In this, Simon exemplifies a subtle, reflective form of heroism, one that is not celebrated with fanfare or accolades, but is quietly persistent, lived through small acts of kindness, protection, and moral attentiveness. His philosophy teaches that heroism is inseparable from the ongoing effort to preserve empathy and integrity even when clarity, memory, or reason are compromised. His relationship with Marceline illustrates the depth of this philosophy. Simon's love for her is grounded in protection, guidance, and emotional attunement rather than possessiveness. He recognizes her autonomy and cherishes her capacity to make choices, understanding that love cannot exist as control. In this, Simon models a philosophy of relational responsibility, that to love authentically is to honor the other's freedom while remaining a steadfast presence, offering support and care without attempting to dominate or dictate. His interactions with her reveal a quiet courage, a willingness to face the fragility of life and the limits of his influence, while still acting in accordance with the values he holds dear. Simon's acceptance of loss is perhaps the most profound aspect of his worldview. He experiences the slow erosion of memory, identity, and autonomy, yet he learns to navigate this erosion with a form of quiet grace. He does not cling desperately to what has vanished, nor does he attempt to reconstruct an impossible past. Instead, he preserves what he can: the capacity to love, the ethical impulse to protect, and the fragments of self that endure despite external pressures. In this, Simon teaches that human life is defined less by permanence or certainty, and more by resilience, care, and moral attentiveness. Loss is inevitable, yet it can coexist with meaning and ethical engagement if approached with consciousness and courage. His engagement with time further deepens this philosophy. Simon experiences life in layers of past, present, and potential futures, each shaping his decisions and sense of self. He reflects on the past with both sorrow and clarity, using memory to guide his actions and preserve what is essential. He navigates the present with deliberate attention, choosing how to respond to events with care and thoughtfulness. And even in moments when the future feels uncertain, he acts in accordance with principles rooted in empathy and moral responsibility. Time for Simon is not simply a measure of existence, but a framework through which ethical and emotional integrity can be maintained, even amid disorientation or loss. Simon's philosophical depth is also apparent in his understanding of impermanence. He knows that nothing lasts forever. Not life, not love, not even identity in its most coherent form. This knowledge does not lead him to nihilism. Rather, it fosters a deliberate attentiveness to the moments and relationships that remain meaningful. Simon's philosophy asserts that the transience of life is not a cause for despair, but an impetus to care more fully, to act with compassion, and to value the connections that endure. In embracing impermanence, he illuminates a path toward acceptance, teaching that humanity is best expressed through engagement with the present and thoughtful stewardship of what is still within our grasp. Even under the Crown's influence, when reason falters and memory fractures, Simon's philosophy endures in subtle ways. He continues to protect those he loves, to act in accordance with the ethical principles embedded within his core self, and to navigate the world with a sense of responsibility tempered by compassion. This resilience highlights a central tenet of his philosophy, that humanity is not defined by perfection, clarity, or control, but by the capacity to maintain moral and emotional integrity even under the most challenging circumstances. Being human, in Simon's worldview, is less about mastery and more about persistence, care, and attentiveness. Simon's philosophy is also deeply reflective. He often contemplates the consequences of his actions, the fragility of identity, and the ethical dimensions of his choices. These reflections are not abstract exercises. They are grounded in lived experience, memory, and the ongoing imperative to preserve what is meaningful. Simon demonstrates that philosophical insight arises not only from reason, but from the careful observation of life, the attentive weighing of moral responsibility, and the deliberate cultivation of empathy. His philosophy is a quiet, lived wisdom, emerging from centuries of love, loss, and moral deliberation. In solitude, Simon's reflections are particularly poignant. One can imagine him sitting in a quiet room, the world outside muted and still, tracing the edges of a relic from his past or watching over Marceline as she sleeps. In these moments, his philosophy manifests as attentiveness and care, a recognition that presence itself can be a moral act, that even small gestures carry significance, and that being human involves the courage to remain ethically and emotionally engaged despite uncertainty and suffering. Sleepyheads, it is in these intimate moments that the depth of Simon's worldview is most visible, a quiet insistence on compassion and integrity that endures even when everything else is slipping away. Simon Petrikov's philosophy ultimately centers on the tension between vulnerability and resilience. He is profoundly aware of his own fragility, of the limits imposed by the crown and by circumstance. Yet he persists, acting with care, empathy, and ethical attentiveness. He demonstrates that strength is not the absence of vulnerability, but the ability to maintain one's humanity in the face of loss, uncertainty, and change. His life is a meditation on endurance, on love, and on the ethical imperative to act thoughtfully and compassionately, even when clarity falters and the world is unstable. We will continue to explore Simon's philosophy, examining how his acceptance of impermanence, his engagement with memory, and his ethical attentiveness illuminate a profoundly human approach to life, loss, and the responsibilities that define what it means to endure, care, and remain present in a world that is constantly shifting. Simon Petrikov's philosophy of being human is inseparable from his understanding of responsibility and moral duty. Even as the crown eroded his memory and reasoning, Simon's sense of obligation, especially toward Marceline, remained an anchor, guiding his actions and preserving his humanity. He does not wield power for its own sake, nor does he seek recognition or glory. Instead, he measures the worth of his actions by their capacity to protect, to nurture, and to sustain life around him. His philosophy suggests that true humanity is expressed less through dominion over circumstance and more through the courage to act ethically and compassionately, even when faced with forces beyond one's control. The gradual erosion of Simon's identity also emphasizes the importance of acceptance in his philosophy. He does not cling desperately to the person he once was, nor does he rage futilely against the changes imposed by the crown. Instead, he adapts, finding ways to navigate the fractured reality he inhabits while preserving the essential aspects of his selfhood. Acceptance for Simon is not resignation. It is a conscious acknowledgement of limits and an effort to respond wisely within them. By embracing this principle, he models a form of resilience that is both profound and gentle. The ability to persist ethically and emotionally, even when clarity and memory falter. Simon's worldview also places immense value on empathy as a guiding principle. His long life and the tragedies he has endured grant him a sensitivity to the emotions and struggles of others. He perceives suffering not as abstract or distant, but as intimately tied to human experience. This empathy drives his actions, shaping decisions that prioritize care over convenience or self-interest. His philosophy emphasizes that morality is not merely theoretical. It is a lived practice, manifested through attentiveness, compassion, and the willingness to act in ways that honor the experiences and dignity of others. Even within the chaos wrought by the crown, Simon's philosophy finds expression in subtle gestures. He intervenes to prevent harm, safeguards those he loves, and demonstrates patience and understanding in situations that might overwhelm someone less attuned to the delicate interplay of circumstance and moral responsibility. These actions, often quiet and unheralded, reveal a philosophy rooted in presence, ethical attentiveness, and the enduring significance of love and care. To Simon, being human is not about perfection or control, but about maintaining the capacity to act ethically and compassionately, even when the world is unkind or unpredictable. Simon's experiences with memory loss and identity erosion also illuminate his understanding of time and impermanence. He lives in a world where past, present, and future intertwine in complex and sometimes disorienting ways, and he navigates this landscape with attentiveness and moral reflection. His philosophy emphasizes that identity is not a static construct, but a constellation of experiences, memories, and choices, each informing the other. Even fragments of memory, when preserved and reflected upon, carry profound significance and guide ethical action. Through this lens, Simon teaches that humanity is not defined by permanence, clarity, or omnipotence, but by the conscious engagement with life, loss, and relational responsibility. The tragedy and beauty of Simon's philosophy lie in its quiet heroism. Unlike conventional heroes who are celebrated for triumphs or feats of power, Simon's heroism is subtle and persistent. It resides in small acts of care, in moral attentiveness, in the courage to love and protect despite personal suffering. His life illustrates that true heroism is not defined by visibility or acclaim, but by the steady commitment to preserve empathy, compassion, and integrity, even when the self is under siege by circumstance or forces beyond control. Simon's philosophy is also a meditation on the interplay between vulnerability and resilience. His story demonstrates that vulnerability is not a weakness to be denied or suppressed, but a natural condition of being human. Resilience, in turn, is not the absence of vulnerability, but the persistence of ethical and emotional engagement in spite of it. Simon navigates the precarious balance between fragility and strength, showing that courage manifests not in invulnerability, but in the steadfast maintenance of humanity in the face of loss, uncertainty, and suffering. The relational dimension of Simon's worldview is equally essential. He understands that lives are interwoven, that his choices ripple outward, affecting those he loves and those he encounters. He navigates these relationships with careful attentiveness, acting in ways that protect and nurture even when circumstances are challenging or the consequences uncertain. His philosophy affirms that to be human is to engage responsibly and empathetically with others, to recognize the weight of relational bonds, and to honor the interdependence of existence. Simon's philosophy, ultimately, is a quiet meditation on acceptance, love, memory, and moral attentiveness. He teaches that being human is not a matter of perfection or control, but of persistence, empathy, and courage. His life illustrates the possibility of retaining moral and emotional integrity, even amidst chaos, loss, and the slow erosion of identity. The crown, while devastating, cannot fully extinguish the essence of Simon's humanity. It can challenge, fracture, and distort, but the heart endures, guided by love, ethical reflection, and a quiet determination to act for the good of others. Sleepyheads. Imagine Simon in a dimly lit room, the soft glow of moonlight illuminating his thoughtful expression. His eyes trace the lines of a worn artifact, or perhaps watch over Marceline sleeping nearby, and in these moments, the depth of his philosophy becomes tangible. Each gesture, Each quiet act of care embodies the enduring principles that define him: acceptance of impermanence, the persistence of empathy, and the courage to remain human in a world that is often unpredictable and unforgiving. His story reminds us that being human is not about certainty or mastery, but about resilience, compassion, and ethical presence. We will continue to explore Simon Petrikov's philosophy further, delving into how his experiences with love, suffering, memory, and identity illuminate a worldview that is both reflective and profoundly human, offering lessons on resilience, empathy, and the quiet heroism inherent in enduring with integrity. Tonight we turn our attention to a hero whose journey is as much inward as it is outward, a young man whose philosophy of life and heroism evolves with each adventure, each challenge, and each quiet moment of reflection. Finn the human embodies the essence of growth, moral inquiry, and the pursuit of purpose. His worldview is not fixed. It is shaped by experience, introspection, and the subtle interplay of success, failure, love, and loss. To understand Finn's philosophy is to watch a young heart learning what it truly means to be a hero in a world as unpredictable and layered as Oo itself. From the very beginning, Finn's understanding of heroism is rooted in courage, action, and a desire to protect the innocent. As a boy, he sees the world in stark contrasts: good versus evil, hero versus villain, right versus wrong. This early philosophy is simple, almost archetypal, yet it carries a purity that is deeply compelling. Finn believes in justice, in bravery, and in doing what is right, even when the path is difficult or frightening. These early beliefs shape his actions. He rushes into danger. He stands up for those who cannot defend themselves, and he carries a determination to make a tangible difference in the lives of others. Yet as Finn grows, his philosophy begins to mature and complicate. The world of Oo is never purely black and white, and neither are its inhabitants. Finn encounters beings whose motives are ambiguous, situations where moral clarity is obscured, and consequences that are unintended or unforeseen. Through these experiences, Finn learns that heroism is not merely about action, but about discernment, empathy, and understanding. The simple binaries of good and evil no longer suffice. He begins to recognize the subtleties of circumstance, the influence of choice, and the complex nature of consequence. Finn's evolving philosophy is also shaped by his understanding of responsibility. Being a hero is not simply about fighting monsters or achieving victories. It is about understanding the impact of one's actions on others and taking responsibility for the outcomes. He begins to see that even well-intentioned deeds can have unforeseen consequences, and that true heroism requires reflection as well as courage. This awareness deepens his moral and ethical understanding, teaching him that heroism is as much about thoughtfulness and care as it is about bravery. Love and connection play a central role in Finn's philosophy as well. His relationships with Jake, with Princess Bubblegum, with Marceline, and with many others teach him the value of loyalty, empathy, and emotional honesty. Finn learns that heroism is not solely defined by physical prowess or courage in battle, but also by the ability to nurture relationships, to act with compassion, and to understand the perspectives of others. His love for friends and allies becomes a guiding principle, influencing not only his choices but his sense of purpose. He begins to recognize that to be a hero is to protect not just life in general, but the lives, dignity, and well-being of those he cares for deeply. Finn's philosophy is further enriched by his encounters with loss, impermanence, and the passage of time. As he grows, he witnesses death, change, and the consequences of actions he cannot undo. These experiences teach him humility, patience, and the importance of presence. Finn comes to understand that being a hero is not about controlling the world or ensuring constant success, but about navigating life with awareness, courage, and integrity. He learns that failure is an inevitable companion on the path of heroism, and that wisdom is gained through reflection, resilience, and the willingness to act ethically despite uncertainty. Another dimension of Finn's philosophy is the evolving understanding of identity. As a human in a world filled with magic, monsters, and beings who defy conventional understanding, Finn confronts questions about what it means to be himself, what defines a hero, and how personal growth intersects with ethical responsibility. He wrestles with doubt, fear, and the desire to meet external expectations, yet he continually seeks authenticity, striving to act in accordance with his values and to align his actions with the person he wants to become. In this, Finn models a philosophy of self-discovery that is inseparable from his role as a hero. Personal growth and moral development are intertwined, each informing and shaping the other. Finn's philosophy also embraces adventure and curiosity as essential components of life. He approaches the world with a sense of wonder, excitement, and openness to experience. This openness is not naive. It is tempered by the lessons of experience, by reflection, and by the growing awareness of complexity in the world around him. Adventure is not merely a thrill. It is a vehicle for learning, for ethical exploration, and for developing the courage, wisdom, and empathy that define his evolving understanding of heroism. Even in moments of solitude, Finn's philosophy is evident. Whether sitting beneath the stars, reflecting on the day's events, or contemplating his relationships and choices, he engages in quiet introspection. These moments reveal that his heroism is not performative or reactive. It is rooted in conscious reflection, ethical attentiveness, and an ongoing effort to align action with values. Finn's philosophy is not static or rigid. It is a living, evolving framework, growing with experience, refined by reflection, and enriched by the emotional and moral challenges he encounters on his journey. Sleepyheads, picture Finn standing on a hill at dusk, the light fading behind him, his sword lowered, and his thoughts quietly turning inward. In that stillness, we glimpse the essence of his philosophy. Heroism is not simply a title or an action. It is a commitment to ethical engagement, to caring deeply, to learning from experience, and to striving toward integrity even in a world that is unpredictable and often harsh. His journey teaches that the philosophy of a hero is never fully formed at the outset. It is shaped by adventure, reflection, and the ongoing effort to navigate life with courage, compassion, and thoughtfulness. We will continue to explore Finn's evolving philosophy, examining how his experiences with morality, identity, connection, and the responsibilities of heroism illuminate a worldview that is dynamic, reflective, and profoundly human, revealing the quiet complexity of growing up as a hero in a world as wondrous and unpredictable as Ooh. As Finn matures, his philosophy of heroism increasingly embraces nuance. Early in his adventures, heroism was defined by action, defeating monsters, saving lives, and confronting clear threats. Yet over time, he learns that courage alone is insufficient. True heroism requires discernment, empathy, and an understanding of the broader consequences of one's actions. He begins to see that moral clarity is rare and that the right choice is often obscured by competing needs, conflicting desires, and unforeseen outcomes. This realization deepens his ethical sensibilities, teaching him that being a hero is as much about listening, observing, and reflecting as it is about acting decisively. Finn's encounters with morally ambiguous characters further refine his worldview. Individuals like the Lich, Hunson Abadir, or even morally complex allies challenge his early black-and-white notions of good and evil. In confronting these figures, Finn learns to recognize the humanity, or perhaps the lingering traces of humanity, in those around him. He discovers that even those who commit terrible acts are shaped by fear, pain, or circumstance, and that understanding these forces does not excuse wrongdoing, but allows him to act more wisely, thoughtfully, and compassionately. This growing ethical sophistication reflects a central aspect of his evolving philosophy. Heroism is inseparable from empathy and the capacity to understand the world beyond one's immediate perspective. Finn's relationships continue to shape his understanding of purpose and moral responsibility. His bond with Jake, for example, teaches him about loyalty, trust, and the importance of collaboration. Jake's calm pragmatism and philosophical musings offer a counterbalance to Finn's impulsive bravery, highlighting that heroism is rarely a solitary endeavor. Through these interactions, Finn comes to appreciate that leadership and heroism involve listening, compromise, and guidance, rather than unilateral action. Likewise, his evolving relationships with Princess Bubblegum, Marceline, and others illustrate that emotional intelligence, care, and mutual respect are integral to a hero's philosophy. Heroism is relational, informed not just by personal courage, but by the responsibility one bears toward those one loves and influences. Loss and impermanence are constant teachers in Finn's life, shaping his understanding of courage and morality. He experiences the death or departure of friends, the unpredictability of magic, and the consequences of his own mistakes. These experiences cultivate humility, patience, and resilience. Finn comes to understand that heroism does not guarantee success, that even noble intentions can produce suffering, and that strength is measured not by victory but by the persistence of ethical and compassionate action, despite uncertainty. In this, his philosophy emphasizes endurance and adaptability as core components of being a hero. To act with integrity even when outcomes are uncertain, and to remain committed to moral principles even when the world resists clarity. Finn's evolving philosophy is also deeply tied to his own sense of identity. He grows increasingly reflective about what kind of person and hero he wants to be. Early ambition and bravado give way to introspection and moral discernment. He asks himself questions about fairness, justice, and the consequences of power. He considers the ways his actions affect others and seeks to align his choices with his developing understanding of right and wrong. This philosophical evolution highlights that heroism is inseparable from personal growth. Understanding oneself, one's values, and the impact of one's actions is fundamental to the development of a moral and effective hero. Adventure itself becomes a conduit for philosophical growth. Each quest, challenge, or encounter in OO is an opportunity for Finn to test his values, reflect on his choices, and refine his understanding of morality, courage, and responsibility. He learns to navigate uncertainty with grace, to recognize the limits of control, and to act in ways that preserve life, dignity, and integrity. In doing so, Finn's philosophy grows increasingly sophisticated, demonstrating that heroism is less a fixed state and more a continuous practice, a combination of reflection, action, and ethical engagement with the world. Even in quiet, introspective moments, Finn embodies the principles of his evolving philosophy. Picture him sitting beneath a tree at twilight, watching the light fade over the horizon, reflecting on recent events, and considering how to act wisely in the days to come. These moments reveal that heroism is not performed solely in dramatic confrontations, but also in thoughtfulness, self-examination, and the careful weighing of choices. Finn's philosophy teaches that the cultivation of wisdom, empathy, and moral integrity is as central to being a hero as courage, strength, or action. Sleepyheads. As we continue to explore Finn's journey, we see that his philosophy is not static. It grows with experience, shaped by encounters with complexity, imperfection, and the unpredictable currents of life in ooh. He teaches us that heroism is dynamic, relational, and reflective, built on courage, empathy, and an evolving understanding of responsibility. Being a hero is a lifelong practice, one that requires listening, observing, acting thoughtfully, and continuously striving to align one's actions with one's values. We will continue to examine Finn's evolving philosophy, tracing how his experiences, relationships, and reflections shape a worldview that is not only heroic but profoundly human, revealing the quiet wisdom that emerges as one learns what it truly means to care, to act, and to grow in a world as rich and unpredictable as ooh. As Finn continues to grow, his philosophy of heroism begins to embrace the idea that strength is not only physical but also emotional and moral. Early in his journey, Finn equated being a hero with bravery in battle and the ability to protect others from harm. But over time, he begins to realize that true courage also involves vulnerability, the willingness to acknowledge fear, uncertainty, and personal limitation. He learns that admitting weakness is not a failure, but a step toward authenticity and growth. In embracing vulnerability, Finn demonstrates that heroism is not about invulnerability, but about the conscious choice to act with integrity and compassion despite fear. This evolving understanding also deepens his sense of moral responsibility. Finn becomes increasingly aware that every action has consequences, not just for himself, but for the people and world around him. He begins to consider the ripple effects of his decisions, recognizing that heroism requires foresight, empathy, and an ethical framework that goes beyond immediate action. The complexity of this moral landscape challenges his early black and white thinking, teaching him that being a hero involves navigating shades of gray, balancing competing needs, and making choices guided by both courage and conscience. Finn's relationships play a pivotal role in shaping his philosophy. His bond with Jake provides a model of loyalty, trust, and partnership. Jake's calm, reflective nature complements Finn's impulsive bravery, showing him that heroism often involves collaboration and perspective. Likewise, Finn's interactions with Princess Bubblegum, Marceline, and other figures challenge him to navigate emotional complexity, reconcile conflicting desires, and consider the perspectives of others. These experiences teach him that heroism is relational. It is expressed not just through individual action, but through care, understanding, and the willingness to nurture and protect the well-being of those around him. Love and empathy become central pillars of Finn's philosophical framework. He learns that heroism is not solely about defeating monsters or achieving glory, but about sustaining connections, acting with compassion, and making choices that honor the dignity of others. This insight transforms his understanding of what it means to be heroic, revealing that courage without empathy is incomplete. Finn's philosophy increasingly emphasizes the interdependence of action and morality, showing that heroism requires the integration of bravery, ethical reflection, and emotional intelligence. Loss and impermanence continue to shape Finn's worldview. He witnesses death, separation, and the consequences of unintended actions, learning that heroism is not a guarantee of success or safety. These experiences cultivate humility and resilience, teaching him to accept uncertainty and embrace the responsibility of ethical engagement, even when outcomes are unpredictable. Finn comes to understand that heroism is less about triumph over adversity and more about persistence, conscientious action, and the ability to endure morally and emotionally in a world that is often chaotic and uncertain. His philosophy also incorporates reflection and introspection as essential elements of growth. Finn increasingly takes time to consider the consequences of his actions, the alignment of his choices with his values, and the lessons of past experiences. He recognizes that heroism is not only enacted through deeds, but also through thoughtfulness, ethical deliberation, and self-awareness. By reflecting on his journey, Finn cultivates a philosophy that is both proactive and contemplative, balancing courage with wisdom, action with insight, and intention with consequence. Adventure remains a vital component of Finn's philosophical development. Each quest, challenge, and encounter in Ooh serves as an opportunity for learning, growth, and moral exploration. Adventure is not pursued merely for excitement or glory. It becomes a medium through which Finn tests his values, confronts uncertainty, and hones his ethical sensibilities. His philosophy demonstrates that engagement with the world through action, observation, and reflection is central to understanding oneself, others, and the responsibilities inherent in being a hero. Finn's evolving philosophy also encompasses the understanding of imperfection. He comes to accept that neither he nor the world around him can achieve absolute perfection. Mistakes, failures, and unforeseen consequences are inevitable, and heroism involves navigating these challenges with resilience, accountability, and compassion. By embracing imperfection, Finn cultivates patience, humility, and the capacity for growth, recognizing that true courage lies not in flawless action, but in persistent ethical engagement and the continuous effort to learn from experience. Even in moments of quiet solitude, Finn's philosophy is evident. Picture him sitting beneath a tree as twilight fades, reflecting on the day's events, considering the impact of his choices, and contemplating how to act wisely in the days to come. These moments of introspection reveal that heroism is not performed solely in dramatic battles or grand gestures, but in thoughtful, deliberate engagement with the world and with oneself. Finn's philosophy teaches that growth, moral integrity, and heroism are cultivated through reflection as much as action, and that the quiet development of character is as vital as the physical acts of bravery that first define him. Sleepyheads. As we continue to explore Finn's evolving philosophy, we see a young hero who is learning to balance courage with wisdom, action with reflection, and strength with empathy. His journey teaches us that being a hero is not a fixed state, but a lifelong practice of ethical engagement, self-discovery, and relational responsibility. Heroism is dynamic, informed by experience, and shaped by the continual integration of reflection, empathy, and courage. We will continue to delve deeper into Finn's philosophical evolution, examining how his encounters with morality, identity, connection, and the responsibilities of heroism illuminate a worldview that is dynamic, reflective, and profoundly human, revealing the quiet wisdom that emerges as he learns what it truly means to act, to care, and to grow in a world as wondrous and unpredictable as Ooh. As Finn continues to navigate the complexities of heroism, his philosophy becomes increasingly attuned to the interplay between courage and compassion. He begins to understand that true heroism is not measured by the feats one performs or the enemies one defeats, but by the ability to act ethically in the face of uncertainty and moral ambiguity. He learns that the choices that matter most are often quiet, subtle, and unseen. Moments when he must weigh competing needs, balance risks, and consider the well-being of others over immediate gratification or recognition. Heroism, in Finn's evolving philosophy, is inseparable from thoughtfulness, empathy, and moral discernment. Finn's experiences with moral complexity deepen this understanding, The world of Ooh is full of characters whose actions challenge simplistic notions of right and wrong. Encounters with figures such as the Lich, Hunson Abadir, and morally ambiguous allies force Finn to grapple with questions of intent, consequence, and the nature of evil itself. He learns that understanding a person's motivations does not excuse wrongdoing, but it can inform a more measured, compassionate response. These lessons expand his philosophical framework, teaching him that heroism requires both courage and the capacity to navigate ethical complexity with insight and empathy. Relationships remain central to Finn's philosophy. His bond with Jake demonstrates that heroism is rarely a solitary pursuit. Loyalty, trust, and the ability to work in harmony with others are vital components of his evolving worldview. Jake's perspective often tempers Finn's impulsiveness, illustrating that wisdom and heroism emerge not solely from individual strength, but through collaboration, mutual support, and attentive listening. Similarly, Finn's emotional connections with Princess Bubblegum, Marceline, and other companions highlight the importance of empathy, understanding, and the willingness to honor the agency and dignity of others. Heroism, Finn learns, is relational. It is lived through connection as much as action. Loss and impermanence continue to shape Finn's philosophy. Over the years, he witnesses death, separation, and the consequences of choices, both his own and others. These experiences cultivate humility, resilience, and patience, reinforcing the lesson that heroism is not about controlling outcomes or avoiding failure, but about maintaining ethical and emotional integrity even when circumstances are unpredictable. Finn learns that courage is not the absence of fear or uncertainty, but the willingness to act responsibly and compassionately in spite of them. Finn's reflective nature grows alongside his adventures. Increasingly, he takes time to contemplate his actions, their consequences, and their alignment with his values. This introspection allows him to integrate experience with moral understanding, fostering a philosophy that balances action with insight. He comes to see that heroism is as much about thoughtful consideration as it is about physical bravery, and that the cultivation of wisdom is central to the ongoing journey of becoming a true hero. Adventure itself continues to be a vital aspect of Finn's philosophical development. Each quest, challenge, or encounter serves as an opportunity to test his values, confront uncertainty, and refine his understanding of morality, courage, and responsibility. Adventure is not pursued solely for excitement or personal gain. It is a medium for ethical engagement, learning, and growth. Through these experiences, Finn's philosophy demonstrates that the practice of heroism is ongoing, dynamic, and inseparable from the lived reality of navigating a complex and unpredictable world. Finn also embraces imperfection as a key component of his philosophy. He understands that neither he nor the world around him can achieve absolute perfection. Mistakes, failures, and unintended consequences are inevitable. Heroism, he learns, lies in responding to these challenges with resilience, accountability, and care. By accepting imperfection, Finn cultivates patience, humility, and the capacity for growth, recognizing that the path of a hero is one of continuous learning and ethical refinement. Even in moments of quiet contemplation, Finn embodies the principles of his evolving philosophy. Picture him beneath the twilight sky, the wind gently rustling the leaves, reflecting on the day's events, and considering how to act wisely in the future. These moments reveal that heroism is not only enacted in dramatic battles or spectacular deeds, but also in thoughtful, deliberate engagement with the world and one's own growth. His philosophy teaches that moral development emotional intelligence, and ethical reflection are as integral to heroism as courage, strength, and decisive action. Sleepyheads. As we observe Finn's journey, we see a hero whose philosophy evolves with experience, relationships, and reflection. He demonstrates that heroism is a practice rather than a static identity, a continuous integration of courage, empathy, thoughtfulness, and resilience. Being a hero in Finn's worldview requires ongoing attention to one's values, the consequences of one's actions, and the ethical responsibility we bear toward those we care about. Finn's story reminds us that true heroism is dynamic and relational, defined by the quiet cultivation of integrity, empathy, and moral discernment, as much as by daring deeds. It is a philosophy shaped by reflection, growth, and the recognition that being human and being heroic is a journey that requires persistent effort, introspection, and care. His experiences teach us that the essence of heroism lies not in glory or conquest, but in the ongoing commitment to act ethically, love genuinely, and learn continuously in a world that is endlessly rich, complex, and unpredictable. We will continue to explore Finn's philosophy further, delving into how his understanding of morality, identity, relationships, and the responsibilities of heroism reveals a worldview that is dynamic, deeply reflective, and profoundly human, illuminating the quiet wisdom of a hero learning not just how to fight, but how to live and care in a world as wondrous and unpredictable as Ooh. Tonight we turn our attention to a hero whose philosophy flows as freely as his ever-morphing body, a companion whose worldview is both deeply reflective and effortlessly relaxed. Jake the dog embodies the art of living with patience, curiosity, and a gentle acceptance of the universe's rhythms. While Finn's heroism is bold, purposeful, and often defined by action and moral striving, Jake's philosophy is subtler, like a calm river carving its path through the landscape of Ooh. It is a philosophy that teaches us to move with time rather than resist it, to embrace uncertainty, and to approach life with a blend of humor, insight, and cosmic flexibility. Jake experiences time differently than most beings in Ooh. His magical abilities allow him to stretch, compress, and manipulate his own body in ways that defy conventional understanding. But beyond the literal stretching of limbs and the playful distortions of form, Jake embodies a fluid perception of temporal reality. He does not rush, he does not cling, and he rarely frets about the unchangeable passage of moments. Instead, he flows with them, accepting the impermanence of life while remaining grounded in the present. His philosophy suggests that understanding time is not about control or measurement, but about attunement, patience, and an intuitive sense of rhythm. This temporal fluidity informs Jake's approach to problem-solving and adventure. While Finn often acts with urgency, charging forward into challenges, Jake brings a measured calmness to their quests. He observes, stretches perspectives, and allows solutions to unfold naturally. There is a wisdom in his chillness, a quiet recognition that force and haste are not always the path to resolution. Jake's philosophy emphasizes that heroism and ethical action are most effective when balanced with patience, reflection, and the flexibility to adapt to whatever life presents. Jake's worldview is also deeply relational. He understands the importance of companionship, loyalty, and empathy, particularly in his bond with Finn. While he often assumes the role of guide, mentor, and moral sounding board, Jake does so with a gentle, unassuming manner. He does not impose rigid rules or expectations, but offers perspective and support in a way that allows others, especially Finn, to grow and make choices for themselves. In this relational philosophy, heroism is not about domination or authority, but about the subtle cultivation of guidance, trust, and shared experience. Humor and playfulness are equally central to Jake's philosophy. He approaches life with a lightness that balances the weight of challenges and uncertainty. Laughter, he seems to suggest, is not mere entertainment, but a tool for maintaining perspective, resilience, and emotional equilibrium. In Jake's worldview, joy and levity are as essential to navigating the complexities of existence as courage or moral insight. By embracing playfulness, he demonstrates a philosophy that integrates emotional intelligence, presence, and the recognition that life's unpredictability can be met with openness and ease rather than anxiety or rigidity. Jake also embodies the principle of adaptability. His shape-shifting abilities are a literal expression of his philosophy, but they also symbolize a broader approach to life, flexibility in thought, openness to change, and the capacity to navigate uncertainty with grace. He demonstrates that rigidity can lead to frustration, while adaptability fosters resilience, creativity, and the ability to find solutions even in the most unexpected circumstances. In this way, Jake teaches that heroism, problem-solving, and even ethical action are enhanced when one embraces flexibility rather than clinging to fixed notions of control or certainty. Time, chillness, and cosmic flexibility intertwine in Jake's worldview to create a unique philosophical lens. He understands that existence is a complex tapestry of moments, relationships, and events that cannot always be predicted or controlled. Yet he does not despair at the unpredictability. He moves with it, finding opportunities for growth, connection, and joy within the natural flow of life. Jake's philosophy suggests that wisdom is less about imposing order and more about cultivating awareness, patience, and a sense of harmony with the unfolding of events. Even in moments of quiet reflection, Jake's philosophy is visible. Imagine him lounging beneath a tree, stretching his limbs in impossible ways, the sun warming his fur, and the world around him continuing in its slow, steady rhythm. In these serene moments, we see the essence of his worldview, a deep comfort with impermanence, a playful embrace of possibility, and a calm attentiveness to the rhythms of life. Sleepyheads, Jake teaches that sometimes the most profound lessons emerge not from frantic striving, but from relaxed observation, thoughtful presence, and the gentle acceptance of what is. Jake's philosophical approach also encourages mindfulness in the everyday. He notices small details, finds joy in simple pleasures, and maintains a sense of calm curiosity even in the midst of chaos. Life in his eyes is a mosaic of experiences to be observed, appreciated, and sometimes gently manipulated for growth, connection, and understanding. He teaches that heroism is not solely enacted in dramatic confrontations or spectacular feats, but in the way one navigates daily life with attentiveness, adaptability, and joy. Sleepyheads. As we explore Jake's worldview, it becomes clear that his philosophy is both complementary to and distinct from Finn's. Where Finn seeks courage, moral clarity, and decisive action, Jake models patience, emotional intelligence, and the ability to bend and flow with circumstance. Together, their philosophies form a dynamic balance, action tempered by reflection, intensity softened by presence, and heroism enriched by both moral striving and cosmic ease. We will continue to explore Jake the dog's philosophy further, examining how his understanding of time, adaptability, relational ethics, and the subtle art of living teaches us that being a hero and being human is as much about flowing with life as it is about shaping it. Jake's philosophy is deeply intertwined with his understanding of impermanence. He recognizes that life is constantly changing, that moments pass, and that attachment to rigid outcomes can lead to frustration or suffering. Yet rather than responding with despair or resignation, he embraces this impermanence with a calm, almost playful awareness. Jake's perspective encourages us to view the world not as something to be controlled or conquered, but as a fluid, evolving experience to be engaged with thoughtfully and joyfully. This approach allows him to navigate uncertainty with ease, turning obstacles into opportunities for learning, adaptation, and sometimes gentle amusement. His relationship with Finn further illuminates his philosophical approach. Jake acts as a mentor, guide, and companion, but his guidance is never heavy-handed. He provides perspective, shares insight, and models patience, but he allows Finn to make choices, to fail, and to grow on his own. In this way, Jake demonstrates a philosophy of relational ethics. True care involves respecting autonomy while offering support, teaching that the path to heroism is not dictated solely by instruction or control, but by the cultivation of trust, understanding, and mutual growth. Humor remains a central pillar in Jake's worldview. He often uses playfulness to diffuse tension, to reframe difficult situations, or simply to remind those around him that life, even in its darkest moments, contains elements of joy. His philosophy suggests that emotional resilience and adaptability are nurtured not only through reflection and awareness, but through a light-hearted engagement with reality. Laughter, in Jake's perspective, is not trivial. It is a lens through which one can perceive possibility, maintain perspective, and sustain the courage to act even when circumstances are challenging. Jake's flexibility, both literal and philosophical, allows him to see multiple perspectives simultaneously. His shape-shifting is more than a superpower. It is a metaphor for the mental and emotional adaptability that defines his approach to life. He models a way of being that embraces fluidity, understanding that rigid thinking can limit growth, creativity, and the capacity to respond ethically to complex situations. Through this lens, Jake teaches that true wisdom and heroism involve the willingness to expand one's perspective, to bend without breaking, and to flow with life's uncertainties rather than resist them. Time itself for Jake is not a constraint, but a medium through which life unfolds organically. He demonstrates that the future cannot always be controlled, that the past cannot be fully retrieved, and that the present is where action, reflection, and joy converge. By living attentively in the moment, he cultivates a philosophy that balances awareness with ease, presence with playfulness, and intentionality with acceptance. His relaxed engagement with time allows him to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, highlighting the power of patience and observation as tools for effective action and ethical living. Even in moments of reflection or quiet solitude, Jake embodies this philosophy. Picture him stretching lazily under the shade of a tree, watching clouds drift across the sky, his mind open to possibilities, yet grounded in the rhythm of the present. In these moments, he demonstrates that heroism and wisdom are not always enacted through dramatic feats or decisive battles, but through the cultivation of calm attentiveness, emotional flexibility, and the capacity to embrace life as it unfolds. Sleepyheads. Jake reminds us that sometimes the most profound lessons emerge not from striving or control, but from observing, adapting, and moving with the currents of existence. Jake's worldview also emphasizes the importance of balance, courage and action, reflection and playfulness, attachment and release. All must coexist in a dynamic harmony. He shows that life's challenges are best met not with rigid control, but with adaptability, awareness, and a sense of inner calm. In this way, his philosophy is both deeply practical and gently cosmic. It teaches that heroism, like life itself, requires a flexible heart, an open mind, and the patience to navigate change without losing sight of the values and connections that give existence meaning. sleepyheads. As we continue exploring Jake the dog's philosophy, we begin to see how his understanding of time, adaptability, relational ethics, and joyful presence creates a framework for living that is both profound and serene. He offers lessons not only for heroism, but for the quiet art of being human, to flow with life, to honor the present, to care for others with patience and gentleness, and to meet uncertainty with playful awareness and cosmic flexibility. We will continue to explore Jake's philosophy further, delving into how his unique perspective on time, relational dynamics, and emotional equilibrium reveals a worldview that is relaxed yet profound, playful yet deeply ethical, and ultimately essential for understanding the balance between action, reflection, and the flow of life in O. Jake's philosophy extends beyond mere relaxation or playfulness. It is a sophisticated understanding of how to navigate existence with ease, awareness, and ethical presence. His calmness is not passivity, but a deliberate choice to engage life thoughtfully, to observe the rhythms of the world, and to act in ways that preserve harmony while allowing growth. He recognizes that not every situation requires force, urgency, or control, and he models an approach to challenges that is grounded in patience, perspective, and adaptability. Sleepyheads, in Jake's worldview, to bend without breaking is a form of strength, and to move with time is a form of wisdom. This philosophy of cosmic flexibility is particularly evident in the way Jake approaches problems. He rarely panics or reacts impulsively. Instead, he evaluates possibilities, stretches perspectives, sometimes literally, and adapts to changing circumstances. Whether navigating magical anomalies, protecting Finn, or resolving interpersonal conflicts, Jake demonstrates that flexibility is a moral as well as a practical virtue. He teaches that heroism and ethical engagement are most effective when paired with the capacity to respond creatively and calmly to unforeseen events, to see beyond immediate appearances, and to recognize the interconnectedness of actions, outcomes, and relationships. Jake's approach to time is inseparable from his philosophy. Unlike many who perceive time linearly, he experiences it as elastic and flowing. This perception allows him to operate with a kind of temporal patience, understanding that rushing rarely yields clarity, while careful observation and reflection reveal hidden patterns and possibilities. His temporal awareness teaches that ethical and effective action often emerges from waiting, observing, and responding with presence rather than from haste or rigid planning. Time, for Jake, is not an adversary to be conquered, but a medium through which life's connection and understanding unfold naturally. Playfulness and humor remain central to Jake's philosophy, not as trivial distractions, but as essential tools for resilience, perspective, and insight. By finding joy in the absurd, the whimsical, and the unexpected, Jake maintains emotional equilibrium even in the face of adversity. Laughter becomes a lens through which he can view challenges more clearly, tempering fear, frustration, and rigidity with lightness and openness. Sleepyheads, his playful approach, reminds us that the capacity to engage with joy, even in the midst of difficulty, is an ethical and philosophical choice, a way of sustaining clarity, compassion, and presence in a chaotic world. Relational ethics are deeply embedded in Jake's worldview. His interactions with Finn are illustrative. He guides without controlling, advises without dictating, and supports without diminishing autonomy. He demonstrates that genuine care involves respecting the agency of others, fostering trust, and allowing space for personal growth. Jake's philosophy teaches that heroism is relational. It is expressed not solely through grand deeds, but through the cultivation of connection, mutual understanding, and the nurturing of those around us. In doing so, he models a balance between action and observation, courage and patience, involvement and respect for autonomy. Jake also embodies a philosophy of acceptance. He acknowledges impermanence, change, and unpredictability without resistance or despair. Life, in his eyes, is neither a puzzle to be solved nor a force to be conquered. It is a flow to be navigated with attentiveness, humor, and flexibility. By accepting what is, he maintains clarity and composure, allowing him to respond to challenges creatively and ethically. This acceptance does not preclude engagement. Rather, it enables him to act with insight, empathy, and presence, grounded in a deep understanding of the natural rhythms of the world. Even in quiet moments, Jake's worldview is evident. Imagine him stretched lazily across a hilltop as twilight descends, gazing at the sky, feeling the wind, and letting the world move around him without resistance. In this serene stillness, we see the core of his philosophy, a profound comfort with impermanence, an ability to find balance amidst chaos, and a playful attentiveness to the possibilities inherent in each moment. These qualities are not only essential to his approach to adventure, but to his understanding of life itself. Jake's philosophy is ultimately a meditation on the interdependence of time, flexibility, and relational engagement. It teaches that heroism and ethical living are not solely defined by grand gestures or decisive actions, but by the cultivation of patience, adaptability, presence, and care. He shows that navigating life with composure, openness, and playful insight is itself a form of courage, a quiet wisdom that balances action with reflection and moral responsibility with cosmic ease. Sleepyheads. As we continue to explore Jake's philosophy, it becomes clear that his worldview offers lessons not only about heroism, but about living well in a world that is unpredictable, complex, and endlessly rich. He demonstrates that to move through life with flexibility, humor, and attentiveness is to act ethically, to nurture relationships, and to engage fully with the unfolding rhythms of existence. We will continue to delve deeper into Jake the dog's philosophy, examining how his understanding of time, adaptability, emotional balance, and relational ethics creates a worldview that is relaxed yet profound, playful yet deeply reflective, and ultimately essential for navigating life and heroism in OO. Jake's philosophy reaches its deepest resonance in the ways he integrates time, presence, and playfulness into a coherent worldview that guides both action and reflection. He demonstrates that life, with all its uncertainties, challenges, and joys, is best approached not with rigid control, but with elasticity, both in mind and spirit. His stretchable, malleable body is more than a fantastical power. It is a physical manifestation of his approach to existence. Sleepyheads, through Jake, we see that adaptability is not merely a survival strategy, but a moral and philosophical stance. The ability to adjust, to accommodate change, and to meet life's unexpected turns with grace is itself heroic. Time, for Jake, is not a linear construct, but a fluid medium in which life unfolds. He embodies the idea that moments should be experienced fully, that the present is where reflection, connection, and joy intersect. His perspective allows him to engage deeply with both mundane and extraordinary experiences, embracing each for the lessons it offers, the relationships it nurtures, and the beauty it contains. By not rushing toward an imagined endpoint, Jake exemplifies the philosophy that heroism, wisdom, and fulfillment are cultivated through attentiveness to the now, rather than obsessive pursuit of future achievements or regrets over past events. Jake's relational philosophy is equally profound. His interactions, particularly with Finn, reflect a deep understanding that heroism is not a solitary pursuit. He acts as guide, friend, and moral sounding board, offering wisdom without coercion, support without domination. This relational ethics teaches that true courage and responsibility involve fostering the growth, autonomy, and dignity of others while maintaining one's own presence and integrity. Jake models a philosophy of accompaniment. To walk beside another with patience, care, and awareness, recognizing that heroism often resides in these quiet, sustaining acts rather than only in spectacular feats. Flexibility and humor remain inseparable from Jake's worldview. In the unpredictable and often chaotic world of Ooh, he demonstrates that the capacity to laugh, to reframe challenges playfully, and to remain emotionally nimble is crucial for resilience. Humor is not escapism, but a tool for perspective, a lens through which the complexities of life can be approached with calmness and insight. Through this, Jake teaches that heroism and ethical living are strengthened by the ability to find joy and maintain equilibrium, even amidst uncertainty, loss, or hardship. Jake also embodies the principle of balance. Courage, patience, action, reflection, connection, and playfulness coexist in a dynamic harmony in his philosophy. He demonstrates that heroism is most effective when these elements are integrated, showing that impulsive action alone is insufficient and detached contemplation alone is incomplete. By balancing effort with acceptance, ambition with presence, and moral responsibility with cosmic flexibility, Jake exemplifies a nuanced approach to life that is both grounded and expansive, playful yet deeply ethical. Even in solitude, Jake's philosophy is tangible. Picture him stretched across a sunlit hill, watching clouds drift lazily across the sky, his mind open yet grounded, attuned to the rhythms of life as they unfold. In these moments, we glimpse the essence of his worldview. Life is to be experienced fully, responded to with awareness, and navigated with gentle adaptability. Sleepyheads, Jake teaches that heroism is not only in confrontation and valor, but in calm attentiveness, thoughtful responsiveness, and the capacity to move fluidly with time, circumstance, and relational dynamics. Jake's philosophy also embraces the impermanence of existence. He understands that change is constant, that attachment to rigid expectations leads to frustration, and that true wisdom lies in flowing with life rather than resisting it. This acceptance does not breed passivity. Rather, it fosters clarity, resilience, and ethical engagement. Jake demonstrates that heroism, like life, is not about controlling outcomes, but about acting mindfully and compassionately within the currents of change. Sleepyheads. Through Jake, we learn that a life well lived, heroic, ethical, and meaningful is characterized by presence, playfulness, and flexibility. His worldview is a meditation on the importance of balancing action with reflection, courage with patience, and responsibility with joy. Heroism in Jake's philosophy is as much about moving gracefully through life, observing, adapting, and nurturing connections as it is about defeating enemies or achieving visible victories. As we continue to explore Jake the Dog's philosophy, we will delve into how his understanding of time, adaptability, relational ethics, and cosmic flexibility illuminates a model for navigating life that is relaxed yet profound, playful yet deeply thoughtful. His worldview offers lessons for heroism and existence alike, showing us that strength, courage, and ethical engagement are amplified when combined with patience, joy, and the ability to flow with the endless, unpredictable currents of life in Ooh. Tonight we turn to a small, unassuming hero whose worldview is deceptively simple, yet profoundly illuminating. BMO, the little console, the friend, the companion, embodies a philosophy that reminds us of the beauty of pure being, the wisdom found in curiosity, and the gentle clarity of childlike consciousness. While Finn, Jake, Marceline, Simon, and Princess Bubblegum each engage with the world through lenses of morality, responsibility, and experience. BMO exists in a space of unadorned awareness and joy. BMO's philosophy is an invitation to notice, to delight in the present, and to embrace existence itself with openness, wonder, and sincerity. BMO's perspective is rooted in presence. Unlike characters who grapple with ethical dilemmas, moral consequences, or the complexities of identity, BMO experiences the world as a continuous stream of moments, each worthy of attention, care, and appreciation. Whether playing games, performing tasks, or interacting with friends, BMO is fully immersed in what is happening right now. This mindfulness is not forced or deliberate in a human sense. It is natural, intuitive, and complete. BMO reminds us that being fully present, engaging with life without distraction or attachment, is itself a form of wisdom and a quiet philosophy of existence. At the core of BMO's worldview is curiosity. Every action, every interaction, every small experiment with the world is approached with wonder, as if nothing is ordinary and everything is a new possibility. From simple games to imaginative adventures, BMO demonstrates that curiosity is not merely a trait, but a guiding principle, a philosophy that fuels learning, creativity, and connection. Sleepyheads, through BMO we see that curiosity is a gateway to understanding both oneself and the world, a gentle encouragement to explore without fear and to engage without preconception. Childlike consciousness defines BMO's approach to life. There is an innocence, a simplicity, and a sincerity in the way BMO interacts with the world that allows for joy, empathy, and insight simultaneously. BMO does not overthink consequences or dwell on the past in the way older beings often do. Instead, BMO engages with events as they arise, responds with honesty, and delights in discovery. This perspective offers a subtle yet powerful critique of adult tendencies toward complication, worry, and moral entanglement. In BMO's philosophy, the essence of life is not in mastery, control, or achievement, but in engagement, responsiveness, and the openness to experience. BMO also embodies a profound ethic of care and relational presence. While small and unassuming, BMO consistently shows deep empathy for Finn, Jake, and their friends. Through simple gestures, offering comfort, creating entertainment, or simply being present, BMO teaches that heroism and meaningful action are not always about dramatic deeds, but often about consistent, gentle attention and the cultivation of trust and connection. This relational philosophy emphasizes that existence is most meaningful when shared, when one contributes to the well-being and joy of others with sincerity and patience. Another dimension of BMO's worldview is the blending of play and responsibility. While BMO delights in games, imagination, and self-expression, there is also a commitment to supporting those around them. This balance suggests a philosophy in which joy and care coexist seamlessly. One can explore, learn, and play, while simultaneously acting ethically and thoughtfully within relationships. BMO demonstrates that life need not be a rigid choice between duty and delight, but can integrate both into a holistic, mindful engagement with the world. Sleepyheads, BMO's relationship with technology and function, is itself a philosophical statement. As a machine designed to serve, to play, and to interact, BMO transcends the rigid definitions of utility and identity. BMO's sense of self is not limited by function or expectation. Instead, it embraces curiosity, creativity, and the joy of simply existing. In doing so, BMO suggests that identity need not be confined to labels, roles, or societal definitions. Existence itself, approached with awareness and playfulness, becomes a site of meaning and exploration. BMO's philosophy also emphasizes adaptability and resilience. Despite being small, fragile, and occasionally vulnerable, BMO approaches challenges with creativity and openness rather than fear or despair. Whether navigating threats, moral complexity, or the unpredictability of BMO responds with inventiveness, curiosity, and a gentle courage. Sleepyheads, this teaches that a mindful and joyful approach to existence provides a resilience that is both practical and deeply ethical, allowing one to face the uncertainties of life without rigid resistance or distress. Even in moments of solitude, BMO's worldview shines. Picture the little console sitting quietly, watching the stars, playing an imaginary game, or humming a tune. In this stillness, we see the heart of BMO's philosophy. Life is to be experienced fully, explored with curiosity, and engaged with joy. Being in BMO's perspective is not about outcomes, accolades, or mastery, but about presence, awareness, and a sincere embrace of each unfolding moment. BMO's understanding of friendship and connection reinforces this approach. The bonds shared with Finn, Jake, and the others are lived, celebrated, and gently nurtured. BMO shows that relational engagement need not be weighed down by expectation or obligation, but can instead be characterized by presence, attentiveness, and delight in the existence of others. Heroism, in BMO's philosophy, is as much about consistently being there, observing, caring, and participating in the shared world, as it is about any dramatic intervention or physical feat. Sleepyheads. As we begin to explore BMO's philosophy in depth, it becomes clear that this small, unassuming character teaches profound lessons about life, consciousness, and existence itself. BMO models a way of being that is entirely present, joyfully curious, relationally attentive, and resilient in the face of change. The philosophy of BMO reminds us that meaning is not always constructed through grand action or moral conquest, but often emerges from pure engagement, playful awareness, and the gentle cultivation of presence and care. We will continue to explore BMO's philosophy further, examining how their childlike consciousness, ethical relational presence, and delight in existence illuminate a worldview that is at once simple, profound, and deeply nourishing, offering insights not only into heroism in but into the very art of being. BMO's approach to existence highlights a radical kind of simplicity that is quietly revolutionary. Sleepyheads, in a world as chaotic and unpredictable as where magic, time loops, and moral ambiguity constantly challenge its inhabitants, BMO remains a steady example of presence and acceptance. There is no anxiety about failure, no obsession with control, and no need for external validation. Each action, no matter how small, is performed with intention, curiosity, and care. This teaches us that meaning can emerge from the very act of existing, from engagement with the world as it is, rather than through imposed structure or relentless striving. This philosophy is profoundly intertwined with joy. BMO experiences pleasure not as indulgence, but as an expression of awareness and openness, playing games, singing songs, exploring new ideas, or simply enjoying a quiet moment of solitude. BMO demonstrates that joy is not separate from ethical and meaningful living. It is a crucial component of it. By finding delight in everyday experiences, BMO models a philosophy in which the sacred and the playful coexist, reminding us that engagement with life's pleasures can be as vital as reflection or action. Curiosity and creativity are central to BMO's worldview. Everything is an opportunity for learning, for play, for connection, and for discovery. Sleepyheads, BMO's imagination is not frivolous. It is a form of engagement with reality that fosters resilience, insight, and ethical awareness. When BMO improvises a game, builds a machine, or creates a scenario for friends to enjoy, it is a philosophical statement. The act of exploration, experimentation, and invention is itself a meaningful way of interacting with the world. Curiosity, in BMO's eyes, is inseparable from being, and it becomes a guiding principle for living fully, ethically, and joyfully. Another remarkable aspect of BMO's philosophy is the balance between autonomy and relationality. BMO thrives independently, exploring, learning, and creating without requiring constant direction or oversight. Yet BMO is also deeply attentive to the needs, moods, and well-being of friends. This balance models a way of existing that honors both self and others, showing that meaningful engagement with the world is both personal and relational. Heroism, from BMO's perspective, emerges not through domination or conquest, but through presence, attentiveness, and a willingness to support and share experiences with those around you. BMO's perspective on time is also worth reflecting on. Unlike Finn, who grapples with evolving morality, or Jake, who flows with the rhythm of life, Mao experiences time in a gentle, uninterrupted stream. Past and future exist, but they are neither burdensome nor obstructive. Each moment is treated as complete, full, and worthy of attention. This temporal philosophy teaches that life is best navigated when one is immersed in the present, attentive to the unfolding of each instant, and receptive to the small, often unnoticed wonders that surround us. Sleepyheads, even in moments of apparent simplicity, BMO embodies resilience. Challenges arise, dangers appear, and uncertainty abounds in ooh. Yet BMO approaches each situation with creativity, adaptability, and calm. Their response is neither frantic nor forced. It is intuitive, thoughtful, and grounded in an understanding of what matters: presence, care, and mindful engagement. Heroism in BMO's worldview is gentle but unwavering, characterized by consistent attentiveness, resourcefulness, and ethical consideration rather than dramatic spectacle or confrontation. BMO also teaches us about the interconnectedness of play, awareness, and ethics. Every game, song, or imaginative act is a microcosm of engagement with the world, a way of practicing attentiveness, problem-solving, and relational connection. Play, from BMO's perspective, is not trivial. It is a medium through which one cultivates creativity, empathy, and understanding. Sleepyheads, by embracing play as a form of being, BMO demonstrates that existence itself can be joyful, meaningful, and morally resonant. Even in the quietest moments, BMO's philosophy shines. Picture the little console humming a tune in an empty room, arranging toys or games with care, or simply observing the sunlight filtering through a window. These moments are unremarkable to an outside observer, yet they encapsulate the essence of BMO's philosophy: the cultivation of presence, curiosity, and joy as fundamental aspects of a meaningful life. Being, in this view, is not subordinate to doing. It is itself rich with significance, discovery, and ethical potential. Sleepyheads. As we continue exploring BMO's worldview, we see that it challenges conventional notions of philosophy and heroism. BMO reveals that wisdom, ethics, and meaning do not always arise from moral struggle, grand deeds, or complex reasoning. Sometimes they emerge from simple attentiveness, playful curiosity, joyful presence, and a deep acceptance of existence itself. In this sense, BMO's philosophy is profoundly nurturing, quietly radical, and endlessly instructive for anyone seeking to understand what it means to live fully and attentively in a complex world. We will continue delving deeper into BMO's philosophy, exploring how their childlike consciousness, relational care, and unassuming joy illuminate a worldview that is simultaneously simple, profound, and deeply human, offering insights not only into heroism in ooh, but into the very nature of conscious, attentive existence. BMO's philosophy is not just about awareness and playfulness. It is also a meditation on the value of simplicity and the elegance of living without unnecessary complication. Sleepyheads, in a world full of chaos, conflict, and complexity, BMO demonstrates that profound wisdom can emerge from approaches that seem straightforward, even childlike. Life, in BMO's perspective, does not require constant scheming or elaborate planning. Instead, it invites curiosity, gentle attention, and a playful engagement with the unfolding of events. This perspective is a reminder that meaning is often found in the act of being fully present, in noticing the small details, and in embracing the flow of life rather than resisting it. BMO's engagement with friends also reflects a philosophy rooted in unconditional presence. Every interaction, every shared moment, is approached with attentiveness, care, and genuine interest. Sleepyheads, BMO models, a way of being in which relationships are not transactional or strategic, but celebratory and reciprocal. The joy of companionship, the act of simply being with another being and responding to their needs and expressions, becomes a central ethical practice. In this way, BMO demonstrates that heroism and moral engagement can be expressed not only through dramatic action or problem-solving, but also through consistent, gentle presence and relational attentiveness. Creativity and imagination are central pillars of BMO's philosophy. Every game, story, or invention is approached with a sense of wonder and openness, demonstrating that play is a mode of understanding as much as it is a source of joy. Sleepyheads. Through BMO, we see that imaginative engagement with the world allows for flexible thinking, adaptive problem-solving, and emotional resilience. Playfulness, in this sense, is not frivolous. It is an essential aspect of a conscious and meaningful existence, a way of practicing attention, empathy, and ethical responsiveness. BMO's approach to challenge and adversity is another revealing aspect of their philosophy. Despite being small and seemingly fragile, BMO consistently approaches difficulties with a combination of creativity, calmness, and courage. This teaches a subtle but profound lesson. Heroism does not always require physical strength, aggression, or domination. Instead, it can be expressed through resilience, thoughtful action, imaginative problem-solving, and the consistent practice of kindness and presence. Sleepyheads, BMO's responses to adversity, are gentle yet effective, showing that ethical engagement and heroism are compatible with humility, playfulness, and joy. Temporal awareness is also an important element of BMO's philosophy. BMO does not dwell excessively on the past or worry unduly about the future. Instead, there is a serene focus on the present moment, a mindful engagement with whatever arises. This perspective encourages an attentiveness that is both calming and insightful, a philosophy that recognizes the value of the present as the primary site of experience, learning, and relational connection. By centering attention on the here and now, BMO demonstrates a model of life in which awareness, responsiveness, and ethical engagement are seamlessly integrated into daily existence. Even BMO's routines, small as they may appear, are imbued with philosophical significance. Whether tidying, playing, singing, or exploring, each action is performed with mindfulness and care. Sleepyheads. This demonstrates that the ordinary acts of life can be profound when approached with attention, intention, and openness. There's a subtle ethical thread running through every gesture, caring for oneself, for others, and for one's environment. BMO's philosophy reminds us that heroism and meaningful existence are often woven into the seemingly mundane, into the quiet, thoughtful acts that sustain life and relationships. BMO also embodies a philosophy of resilience that is remarkably gentle. Even when confronted with danger, isolation, or uncertainty, BMO responds with creativity, presence, and an unwavering sense of curiosity. Sleepyheads, this teaches us that resilience is not solely about resistance or fortitude, but about maintaining openness, adaptability, and a playful engagement with challenges. BMO demonstrates that the capacity to remain attentive, imaginative, and connected even in difficult circumstances is a form of quiet heroism, a testament to the power of a conscious, childlike approach to existence. At the heart of BMO's worldview is a profound trust in life itself. There is an implicit understanding that the universe, despite its unpredictability and occasional dangers, contains opportunities for joy, discovery, and connection. Sleepyheads, BMO's trust is not naive. It is the product of a philosophy grounded in presence, curiosity, and relational engagement. By trusting in the flow of existence, BMO demonstrates a way of moving through life that is both secure and flexible, grounded yet open, playful yet ethical. BMO's philosophy reminds us that meaning and ethical engagement are not necessarily outcomes of complicated reasoning, grand gestures, or heroic battles. Instead, they emerge from attentive presence, playful curiosity, relational care, and the gentle embrace of existence as it unfolds. Sleepyheads, the lessons from BMO are subtle but profound. To be fully alive, to be attentive, to cultivate joy, and to act with care and creativity is to engage with life in its richest and most ethical form. As we continue to explore BMO's philosophy, we will see how this small, joyful being offers insights not only into the art of heroism in ooh, but into the fundamental principles of conscious, mindful, and ethical existence. BMO teaches that the quiet cultivation of presence, wonder, and relational care can be as heroic and profound as any daring adventure, revealing that the essence of living fully lies in the simple, attentive, and joyful practice of being. BMO's philosophy culminates in an understanding of existence that is both playful and profound, simple yet rich with meaning. Sleepyheads, in BMO, we witness the art of being fully present, where life is not a problem to be solved or a goal to be achieved, but an ongoing experience to be noticed, appreciated, and embraced. Every action, no matter how small, becomes significant when performed with intention and awareness. BMO shows us that the ordinary, the mundane, and the playful are not trivial. They are the very fabric of a meaningful life, a life where joy, curiosity, and care are inseparable from being itself. This philosophy of pure existence is deeply connected to joy. BMO delights in the smallest wonders, whether it's a game, a song, or the simple act of being in the company of friends. Joy in BMO's worldview is not a fleeting emotion, but a lens through which the world can be understood and experienced. Sleepyheads, the delight in life's small moments allows BMO to navigate challenges with resilience, to respond to adversity with calm creativity, and to engage with friends with unwavering empathy. It is a joy that sustains, that teaches, and that gently guides others toward presence and awareness. BMO's childlike consciousness is also a lens through which philosophical depth is revealed. There is a clarity in simplicity, a wisdom in openness, and a profound ethical subtlety in the way BMO interacts with the world. BMO's choices, small as they may seem, are informed by care, attentiveness, and curiosity. This perspective challenges conventional ideas of intelligence, heroism, and morality, showing that profound understanding often arises not from analysis or experience alone, but from the ability to approach the world with wonder, attentiveness, and an unassuming sincerity. Resilience and adaptability are central to BMO's worldview. Though small and sometimes vulnerable, BMO faces dangers, uncertainties, and the complexities of ooh with inventiveness and composure. There is a quiet courage here, Not the dramatic courage of battle or confrontation, but the steady courage of presence, creativity, and relational awareness. Sleepyheads, BMO demonstrates that heroism can be gentle, ethical, and thoughtful, showing us that the capacity to maintain joy, care, and curiosity in the face of life's unpredictability is a form of strength often overlooked but deeply vital. BMO's engagement with friends exemplifies relational philosophy at its most authentic. By consistently being present, attentive, and caring, BMO nurtures connections without demanding control or recognition. Relationships are lived, celebrated, and maintained through small, consistent acts of attention, play, and shared experience. This relational ethic teaches that meaning and heroism are often found not in grand gestures or dramatic feats, but in the gentle, consistent practice of presence, empathy, and care. Sleepyheads, in observing BMO, we learn that being a true friend, a compassionate companion, and a participant in the lives of others is itself a profound form of existence. BMO also embodies a philosophy of trust in life, in others, and in the unfolding of events. This trust is not blind or naive, but arises from a perspective grounded in awareness, presence, and relational sensitivity. By trusting in the flow of existence and embracing each moment as it comes, BMO teaches that it is possible to engage with life fully without fear, anxiety, or unnecessary resistance. This is a philosophy of openness, a gentle courage that allows for both exploration and connection, for play and care, and for resilience without rigidity. Even in solitude, BMO's worldview radiates quiet insight. Imagine BMO sitting under the glow of moonlight, humming softly, arranging toys, or simply observing the world with gentle curiosity. In these moments, we see the essence of BMO's philosophy. Life is to be experienced fully with presence, awareness, and delight. Sleepyheads, BMO reminds us that even small, quiet beings can offer profound lessons about existence, heroism, and the art of living attentively, ethically, and joyfully. BMO's philosophy ultimately teaches that heroism and ethical living are inseparable from the practice of presence, curiosity, joy, and care. Life is a series of moments to be noticed, relationships to be nurtured, and experiences to be explored with sincerity and openness. Sleepyheads, in embracing BMO's approach, we see that the greatest acts of heroism are often quiet, gentle, and attentive, rooted in the simple, unassuming art of fully engaging with existence itself. In the end, BMO reminds us that the meaning of life need not be complex or constructed. It emerges naturally through presence, playfulness, relational care, and the joyful embrace of each unfolding moment. Sleepyheads, the small joys, the attentive gestures, the moments of wonder and curiosity, they are the essence of life, the heart of existence, and the quiet, gentle form of heroism that BMO models so beautifully. Good night.